Chapter 1561. Another day had passed. The main hall of the Divine Flame Palace stood in front of the Brahma Sky Mountain. The Divine Flame Plaza was like a city in the sky as more and more guests poured in. For example, the Divine Secrets Pavilion, the Pill Region's Tian family, and the Sword Region's Jian family were all top figures in the sacred boundary. The three elders of the Jian family, Jian Sha, Jian Ming, and the others who were sitting on one side of the Divine Flame Plaza looked at each other. I wonder why Qingxin called us here. Since the Divine Flame Palace has invited many forces of the Sword Region, why don't we wait and see? Damn, it's most likely related to Lin Shun. He has an affair with the Divine Flame Palace's goddess, so he definitely won't give up. My poor Qingxin wants to help him again. She's too kind. Where did that cold girl go? You want Qingxin to return to that cold girl who pursued the Swordao? If it wasn't for Lin Shun, she probably wouldn't even want to see you now. Old thing, you're still pretending to be obedient. The three elders bickered daily. Today, the Jin family of the Sword Region had 3 sword venerables. Not only that, the Flame Region, Battle Region, Thousand Region, and Heavenly Sacred Region had all sent representatives. They were all ruthless characters. At this moment, Heavenly Sacred Region's Yi family sends a congratulatory gift. May the Divine Flame Palace last forever. Heavenly Sacred Region's Zhao family sends a congratulatory gift. May the Divine Flame Palace last forever. The Yi family and Zhao family had also come. Yi Lixue and the Zhao family head led their respective families into the venue. Some super monstrous geniuses found it unbelievable. According to the rules on the surface, the Yi family and Zhao family didn't have the qualifications to be invited. However, when the representatives of the 9th grade forces saw the arrival of the 2 families, they had a nostalgic look in their eyes. They immediately understood. The disciples of the Divine Flame Palace were currently sitting in 2 rows outside the Divine Flame Plaza. They were wearing the same Divine Flame Palace robes, but the atmosphere wasn't harmonious at all. Instead, they were all ready to fight. There was anger hidden in their eyes. These 2 sides represented the 2 factions of the Divine Flame Palace. One side was the Palace Master and Venerable Guardian Shangguan, Ju's traditional position. The other side was the new faction led by Wu Pianju. Other than that, both sides were filled with deacons and protectors of Divine Flame Palace. They were all in the Saint Heart Realm and Heaven Opening Realm, numbering in the thousands. There was no need to even mention the Elder Group with over 100 seats. The weakest among them was a First Revolution sage. It had completely displayed the current foundation of the Divine Flame Palace. Just randomly picking a dozen or so people to form a team would be enough to deal a devastating blow to a rank 8 sect. The powerhouses of the Law Keeper Hall also stood on the side of the women, always vigilant against the other side. Among them were Feng Shui and Shangguan Shun, who had interacted with Lin Shun before. This day has come too quickly. Feng Shui stuck out her tongue. That smelly guy wants to take over the Divine Flame Palace so soon? Shangguan Shun glared at her and said, "Don't talk too much. This is not something we can interfere with." Feng Shui suddenly said, "Do you think Big Brother Lin Shun will come?" Some time ago, he challenged the entire demon genius list alone. This question stumped Shangguan Shun. He hesitated and said, "With his character, the possibility of him coming is very high. However, there are too many powerhouses here today. Even if he comes, I'm afraid it will be of no help." Alas, Feng Shui's eyes twinkled. "No, I believe Big Brother Lin Shun will definitely come." Shangguan Shun sighed and hoped so. In a secret room in the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace, Shangguan Ju, Shunling Shuang, and Bai Ruoyan had a panoramic view of this grand scene. Even Shangguan Ju, who was very calm and experienced, could not maintain absolute calmness at this moment. After all, if she fought with her life on the line, she would not even frown. However, this time, she was gambling with the entire Lawkeeper Hall. This time, she missed the best opportunity to help the people of the Lawkeeper Hall withdraw, and all of them stayed in the Divine Flame Palace to live and die together. Many of the powerhouses of the Lawkeeper Hall were super geniuses who came out of the top 1,000 on the demon genius list. Many of them had aristocratic families, forces, and sex behind them, and they were related to the fate of many forces. If Lin Chun did not come, or if he came, he was not strong enough. Wu Pianju and the others would definitely not let the Lawkeeper Hall go. At that time, they would either surrender and become dogs, helping the evildoers, and let the female disciples of the Divine Flame Palace completely become cauldrons to create Wu Pianju's hegemonic force. Or they would fight to the death and destroy everything. Just as the atmosphere was particularly solemn, the representatives of the Demon Genius list have arrived. As soon as this announcement was made, all the voices in the room suddenly quieted down. The super geniuses subconsciously swallowed their throats. The reclusive old monsters narrowed their eyes. The rank, 8 mighty figures could not help but look in the direction of the voice. Even Shangguan Ju, who was in the main hall, could not help but narrow her beautiful eyes. The Demon Genius list was the main event. Boom! Terrifying saint power and aura, like the eternal sun, moon, and stars, illuminated the entire Divine Flame Palace. Outside the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace, 9 people stepped into the Divine Flame Square at the same time. This was an unforgettable moment for all of them. The geniuses who represented the peak of the various regions in the sacred boundary actually stepped into the Divine Flame Palace Square at the same time. They walked into the hall, which meant that they had given the Divine Flame Palace enough face. The person in the lead had a hunchback and walked on tiptoe. He waved his hands, and his messy and blood-dripping hair hid a pair of murderous eyes. His whole body was soaked in blood, as if he had crawled out of a sea of blood. Blood aura surged around him, and every drop of blood turned into smoke. Demon Genius List, Blood Tribulation, Feng Xietian. The 9 of them walked side by side. The one on the left had a petite figure. When she strode lightly towards him, her green dress was like a fluttering butterfly, and there were actually faint cherry blossoms drifting through the sky, causing the young woman's dark green and beautiful eyes that were like gems to seem crafty and quick-witted. Her appearance was an extraordinary beauty that wasn't the slightest bit inferior to any one of the top 10 beauties on the Genius rankings. However, the most eye-catching feature was the huge coffin-sized sword on the girl's back. The sword seemed to have the power to split open the sky, and a little of its sharpness leaked out, dazzling those on the Demon Genius list. Demon Genius list, Giant Sword Sex Young Master, Flying Flower Chasing Mu Nangong Yu. Behind the young girl, there was a fair-skinned, handsome, and refined young man walking slowly. He looked ordinary, and his eyes were closed. He always had a smile on his face, and his hands were like an ancient Buddha holding flowers, aloof from the outside world. Wherever the linen-clothed young man walked, golden lotuses would surge from the ground. Divine light of the great path flowed around him, and he could become the center of the world without any decorations. Demon Genius List, Martial Buddha Shui Yifan. Behind Shui Yifan was a black-armored figure with a sturdy physique. The black-armored young man's muscles were like dragons. He was strong and capable, and his bare shoulders were covered with old wounds. He carried a black axe on his back, and his entire body was filled with terrifying chi energy. He was like a 9-headed demonic dragon from the Antiquity Age. When the black-armored young man appeared, everyone immediately felt that they were facing an unparalleled, ferocious creature from the Antiquity Age. This was the aura that he had purposely concealed. All the monstrous geniuses instinctively believed that if he were to release himself, he could destroy the 9 levels of heaven in one breath. Demon Genius List, Wasteland's Overlord, Zhu Tianyan. The 4th person from the left was dressed in a plain robe with long sleeves. He was gentle and elegant. The elegant young man held a scripture in his hands. He was extremely humble, and his smile was filled with a warmth that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. He looked like a mortal, and only his eyes had a soul-stirring saint power. Demon Genius List, unparalleled in history, Dongfang Hong. Beside Dongfang Hong was a cold and stern young man. There was a Saint Sun pattern between his eyebrows, and his eyes flashed with golden light. His aura was like that of an emperor who had personally gone to war. Almost no one dared to look into his eyes. It was as if he was the mandate of heaven and the messenger of the great path. He was extremely domineering. Demon Genius List, Emperor of the Great Sun, Yin Patian. The person at the edge of the left was even more mysterious. Her long hair was like a waterfall, and her snow-white face was cold and elegant. Her appearance was peerless and alluring. Her slender body was covered in azure battle armor, and she carried a dragon-like saint spear on her back. She was peerlessly heroic. Her fierce and murderous aura seemed to pierce through the heavens, causing all the monstrous geniuses to feel a chill down their spines. Even the experts of the older generation looked at her. This feeling was similar to that of the Shura clan in the past. It was suffocatingly powerful. Demon Genius List, Limitless Shura, Qian Ingxue. The last two people had extremely similar appearances and auras. They were exquisite and handsome, and they were peerless beauties of the current era. They were not inferior to the number one beauty of the sacred boundary, Han Iji. The two beautiful young men were covered in colorful veils that were like clouds and mist. They had phoenix eyes, faint crescent brows, and colorful holy light lingering around their bodies. They could be said to be extremely handsome, and their auras were like immortals that had descended to the mortal world. Even more miraculous was that there were actually 4 beautiful women that were dancing gracefully by their sides. They were formed purely from the energy of their soul cores, and they coiled around the two of them like fairies that were dancing gracefully. Demon Genius List, Phoenix Twin Ji Qinxiu and Ji Wuqing, the representatives of the top rank. 8 forces who didn't know about Wu Pianzhu's grand plan all gasped slightly. 9 saint geniuses on the saint talent list. They were all saint geniuses of the current era, immortal legends. They were all people who had the potential to become saint kings in the future, and they had all appeared at the same time. This scene was like the desolate age of sages and saints, when kings appeared in the world and the sun and moon faded away, but the saint kings were immortal. Divine Flame Palace can actually invite 9 saint geniuses on the saint talent list. I have a feeling that there might be a big change in this god investiture ceremony. It's definitely not as simple as the god investiture ceremony. Wu Pianzhu, the son of the battle god, must have a big plan to make public. It seems like the changes in the sacred boundary will become more and more intense. We can also become phoenixes by riding on the tide of the era. All the old monsters and hidden powerful figures looked at each other. This was the first time they met, and a large number of super monsters felt the absolute gap between themselves and those on the saint talent list. The 9 saint geniuses slowly walked into the hall. Divine Flame Palace had already prepared the highest seats, and they all sat down. The 9 saint geniuses sat on the high platform, and their power was like the sun in the sky, forming a natural aura that covered everyone's light. It was as if they didn't care about anyone present. Some saint geniuses tore open a bag of snacks and carelessly ate. Some lay down and fell asleep. Some closed their eyes and pretended to be asleep. Some mischievous people curiously looked around at everyone present. Some looked as if everyone owed them tens of thousands of dollars, and they glanced at everyone with a murderous look. Some started to eat melons, and some started to play with mantis shrimps. There were even some who held a scroll of 1,000,000 postures of that night in both hands and didn't care about what was going on in the palace. They only focused on reading the saint geniuses' books, and they didn't care about anyone present at all. The atmosphere in the hall instantly became very solemn. Once the saint talent list appeared, everyone quieted down. As expected of those on the saint talent list, they were full of character. They didn't care about anyone at all, and their actions seemed to be saying, "I'm giving you face by coming here." Now, all the guests had arrived. There were close to 10,000 people present. Although there weren't many people present, it was especially spectacular. The top figures of the sacred boundary were all gathered here. At this moment, light laughter spread everywhere. Haha, welcome to the Divine Flame Palace for the Divine Lord Investiture Ceremony. A white-robed man walked out slowly from the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace. He was handsome and unparalleled. The super monster's pupils constricted. This was the martial god's son, Wu Pianju, who had created his own high-level orange-grade cultivation technique. Today, I've asked all of you to come here to bear witness and discuss important matters together. As for what it is, I'll announce it after the ceremony. When Wu Pianju spoke frankly, the old monsters of various forces were shocked. Indeed, those on the saint talent list were going to cause trouble. At this moment, the saint in charge of announcing the names sent a message in a panic. There's another guest. Everyone was stunned. Who else would come at this juncture? Chapter 1562. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Wuji Palace's Wuji Elder has arrived. The moment he said that, all the saints stood up, their faces filled with shock. Wuji Elder? He was the most mysterious and widely recognized number 1 fortune teller in the sacred boundary. With the Infinity Elder's status, none of the 9th grade forces or saint talents on the saint talent list could invite him. Even the 10 great saints couldn't help but be surprised. They didn't expect Wuji Palace to come, but he actually came uninvited? There are many familiar faces today. The everlasting old man slowly walked into the Divine Flame Plaza. Beside him were 2 little girls who were jumping around. Seeing the limitless old man, many experts were flattered and overjoyed, especially the 10 great elders of Godly Flame Palace. They were overjoyed. They didn't expect Wu Pianju to invite him here. The number 1 fortune teller in the sacred boundary had come. This show and face would add a powerful bargaining chip to the grand plan that was about to be presented to the world. Wu Pianju walked over in person. She greeted him as a junior in a gentle and friendly manner and bowed slightly. Why didn't you inform us in advance that you were coming? Even a martial god's son had to treat him politely. The Wuji old man looked at him meaningfully and said with a smile, "Young martial god's son, you are very proud of your success. Do you feel that your life has reached its climax, and you are about to step on the peak and tide of this era? You feel that you are about to surpass your father, right?" Wu Pianju, who had always been shrewd and aloof, couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Wuji Elder patted him on the shoulder and said with a voice transmission that only the 2 of them could hear, "You are not even half of your father when he was young. Your father was much more cowardly than you." Wu Pianju narrowed his eyes and said, "Are you teaching me how to do things?" Wuji Elder said calmly, "I don't want you to court death." Then, Wuji Elder said with a smile, "I didn't come for you this time. I am old, and I am just here to join in the fun. Arrange a remote corner for me. I came here to drink tea and watch the show. I heard that Godly Flame Palace's tangerines are good. Get one for me." All the saints were in an uproar. The everlasting old man actually came uninvited? Was he here for the martial god's son? Then who was he here for? And he said he wanted to watch the show? What show? When these words fell into the ears of the representatives of the various rank 9 sects and the top 10 most powerful rank 8 sects, the words of the first layer on the surface gave them a taste of the 2nd and 5th layers. Watch the show. Could it be that this old ghost had come for that letter of challenge? That day, those who invited Wuji Elder to come out of seclusion also felt something was strange. A rare trace of fear flashed across Wu Pianju's eyes as she watched the Wuji old man's departing figure. It was as if his thoughts, ambitions, and plans had all been seen through by this old ghost. The number 1 fortune teller of the holy world truly lived up to his reputation. Wuji Wuji, Wuji Wuji, Wuji Wuji Elder. At this time, great-grandfather, why are you here? On the high platform of the main hall, an unexpected exclamation came from the Saint Talent ranking. The beautiful woman was clad in azure battle armor and carried a battle spear on her back. She had an awe-inspiring and valiant bearing, and she exuded a cold and elegant aura. She was the limitless Azura, Qianing Shui. Great-grandfather, its elder sister. Big Sister is here too? Why didn't you tell us? The two girls named Thousand Frost and Thousand Beauty giggled. Everlasting Old Man stared deeply at Qian Ingxue and suddenly said, "You join them?" Qian Ingxue nodded and smiled. "Great-grandpa, you said that it was my destiny to ride the tide of the times, didn't you? From now on, it's time for me to ride the waves." The old man nodded with a smile. "All right. However, since you've grown up and are no longer the high-spirited girl who expanded her acupoints 10,000 times, I will respect your choice." Qian Shui was stunned. In the past, her great-grandfather would always give her hints. I made such an important choice this time, and he didn't even give me a hint? If Marshal Lin was here, perhaps his expression would be very interesting. He had met Qian Shui once in the Jiuzhou continent, in the Firmament Tower. However, that was a story for another time. Fei Qingyu, who was sitting in the Godflame Plaza, had a very interesting expression. Lin Shun had said that if she wanted to know the reason, she could come to the Godflame Palace. Now, even Everlasting Old Man had come. What did he want? The appearance of Everlasting Old Man caused a small interlude. Within the main hall, a strand of crimson divine flames slowly lit up, and it formed a grand path of flames. Two peerlessly beautiful and exquisite figures walked out slowly once more. One of them was as ethereal as a fairy. The scarlet divine flame's brilliance set off the beauty's hair. Her hair was adorned with pearls, and her eyebrows were like the mountains in late autumn. Her beautiful eyes were like jade, untainted by the mortal world. Her dress was like the clouds and snow, making her look like a fairy. Her soft and slender waist was tied with a strand of red light, making her look incomparably beautiful. The divine flame's brilliance surrounded the beautiful fairy. The fairy's slender hands were placed in front of her waist. She was quiet, elegant, and peerless. She didn't need too many decorations. As long as she stood here, she would be the center of the world and could make everything lose their color. Anyone would subconsciously sigh, "How could there be such a person in the world?" If there were fairies in the world, perhaps she would be the most beautiful one. The other one had a delicate body and a beautiful face. Her eyebrows were curved, and the temperament between her eyebrows was like that of a cold and elegant, beautiful woman. Her face and figure were definitely that of a young girl. I like this goddess from the Godflame Palace. Sitting on a high platform, Zhu Tianyan rubbed his chin and said with a playful smile. Nan Gongyu, who was at the side, rolled her eyes. "So what if you like her? She has to like you first. You're so big and coarse." Zhu Tianyan shrugged. "That depends on which part is big and which part is coarse." Nan Gongyu had a look of disdain. You can play around with this?" Marshal Buddha Shui Yifan, who had been smiling at the side, suddenly said, "Compared to the goddess of the Godflame Palace, I'm more concerned about the person beside her. Could it be the most mysterious person in the Godflame Palace, the palace master of the Godflame Palace?" The elegant young master Dongfang Hong's eyes suddenly lit up. He glanced at the girl in red and said concisely, "This person should be the current palace master of the Godflame Palace. She has the cultivation of a half-step holy king, which is rare in the world." At this moment, the girl in red stepped out of the main hall. Her voice was soft and pleasant as she announced, "Everyone, I'm the palace master of the Godflame Palace. Originally, the God Investiture ceremony was supposed to be a festive day for my Godflame Palace. However, today is the first time the God Investiture ceremony has a dispute in the Godflame Palace. It's really the scene that I don't want to see the most. I've really become a joke in front of everyone." After saying that, she turned her eyes and glanced at the seats on the high platform of the Elders Guild with a dignified and cold gaze. The Elders Guild turned a deaf ear to her gaze and pretended to be ignorant, knowing that these old fellows had already changed sides, but they didn't even intend to respond at this juncture. The palace master of the Godflame Palace couldn't help but feel angry. She said again, "Since the God Investiture ceremony this time has an objection to the successor of the Godflame Palace, we can only use the traditional method of the Godflame Palace to determine the winner. My disciple, Byerlin, will fight against the outsider, Wu Pianju." The rules of the battle will follow the 9 chapters and 9 rules set by the Hall of Guardians. The winner will become the next palace master of the god Flame Palace. Chapter 1563. My disciple, Bai Ruoyan, will fight against the outsider, Wu Pianju. The rules of the battle will follow the rules set by the Hall of Guardians. The winner will become the next palace master of Divine Flame Palace. The palace master's description of outsider was especially harsh. It was obvious that the palace master didn't like Wu Pianju and emphasized her identity all the time. The Divine Flame Palace Master indeed had the power and decisiveness to make decisions on important matters. However, as a 9th-rank force, Divine Flame Palace wouldn't give power to one person. It was the same for someone as powerful as the Palace Master. The elders had the same power as the Palace Master when it came to important matters like choosing a successor. Bai Ruoyan didn't say anything. She rode the wind and entered the arena decisively. Her boldness and temperament made the reclusive old monsters and mighty figures present secretly give her a thumbs up, challenging the person on the talent saint list, and a martial god's son at that. This woman didn't hesitate and was full of boldness. Wu Pianju put her hands behind her back and was as calm as water. She even smiled. If an outsider like me becomes the palace master, won't it be a slap to your face? Don't make things difficult for the palace master. Bai Ruoyan stood not far from Wu Pianju. Her beautiful eyes didn't show any fear. You may not win for sure. Wu Pianju smiled but didn't say anything. She took a small step forward. Before she moved, the space suddenly cracked. The space cracked with a tearing sound. Boom! A mushroom cloud rose between the two of them. What the F***, they're starting already. Several super monsters exclaimed. They didn't even see how Wu Pianju moved just now. This was the strength of someone on the talent saint list. If it were them, they would be killed instantly if they went in. Strangely, the surrounding space wasn't affected at all. There wasn't even any wind or waves. Only the surroundings were burning with faint sacred flames that covered the ground. This was Divine Flame Palace's sacred flame space array, which could expand nearby space and stabilize it. When the smoke billowed, the 2 figures appeared. Both of them were unharmed. It looked like they were evenly matched. Wu Pianju patted the dust off her shoulder. Not bad to be able to take one of my attacks. Buzz! Bai Ruoyan's body emitted an eternal and inextinguishable holy aura. Even the Holy Flame Palace's Holy Flame Palace began to tremble. Bai Ruoyan's pupils turned into a faint orange-red color, as if there was a holy flame flickering within. Ruoyan, the Divine Flame Palace Master sighed. Bai Ruoyan actually wanted to use the eternal sacred flame right from the start. This was a gamble of life and death. Right now, Ruoyan had finally managed to suppress the eternal sacred flame with great difficulty. She was only barely able to control a small portion of its power. The longer it was activated, the more dangerous it would be. She was fully aware that Wu Pian was not an ordinary opponent. He had used his full strength right from the start, for the sake of winning. The hearts of the Lawkeeper Hall and the traditional female disciples tightened. Bai Ruoyan didn't need to be like this. She was doing this for the sake of everyone in Divine Flame Palace, for the sake of protecting Divine Flame Palace's last line. Once Wu Pianju took over the Divine Flame Palace, the true female disciples of the Divine Flame Palace would be reduced to cultivation cauldrons. He purposely changed the mental cultivation method of the Divine Flame Palace from a level that was suitable for women to a level that was suitable for men. He also needed to absorb the true cultivation of a woman in order to break through to a higher realm. This change had 2 fatal drawbacks. First, the top mental cultivation methods would be weakened to a certain extent after being cultivated by men. Second, the women of the Divine Flame Palace would never be able to stand out. The female true disciples who passed the strict aptitude test of the Divine Flame Palace for generations would be reduced to cultivation cauldrons for other male true disciples. Moreover, it wasn't just one male true disciple, but several. One woman for more than one male to cultivate. The price for this was that more male Outer Palace disciples would be able to cultivate the top mental cultivation method of the Divine Flame Palace. They would be able to expand the power of the Divine Flame Palace at the fastest speed. Wu Pianju was slightly surprised. She put away the contempt she had for Bai Ruoyan. You can barely be considered an opponent. You're so decisive that even many opponents I've seen can't compare to you. Bai Ruoyan said coldly. I remember every person you've killed from the Divine Flame Palace. Wu Pianju said, reform requires sacrifice. Or can you do a better job than me to revitalize the Divine Flame Palace? Bai Ruoyan said coldly, no, it shouldn't be like this. The Divine Flame Palace isn't without a choice. In the main palace, Shunling Shuang watched Bai Ruoyan, who was planning to fight to the death, and clenched her fists. No wonder Master keeps making me cultivate, and cultivate again. It's all for this situation. I hate myself. I don't even have the ability to help Sister Ruoyan. The girl's green eyes burned with a different kind of sacred fire. Her temperament quietly changed, and her hair started to turn snow white. Shangwan Ju patted her shoulder and pulled her consciousness back. Her martial god bloodline was about to go berserk again. Shangwan Ju sighed deeply. Lin Shun, kid, if you don't come, the Divine Flame Palace will change greatly. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, boom! With a loud noise, the stars moved and the earth's crust shifted. Smoke billowed and whistled, and strong winds blew everywhere. Bang! The sacred fire space in front of the main palace suddenly exploded, and the battle between Wu Pianju and Bai Ruoyan was interrupted, and the Nirvana Valley in front of the main palace was directly lifted up. No one had noticed or sensed who had done it. The hidden aura was so strong that it was flawless. The moment the vast Nirvana Valley was lifted into the air, it covered the sky and covered the sun. Clang, clang, clang. Chi! The sword whistled like a dragon's roar, and flashes of sword light cut the Nirvana Valley into several pieces. Boom! The saber aura came from the 9 heavens. It was like a rainbow or a half moon, and the saber aura completely cut the Nirvana Valley into pieces. The saber aura was like a dragon rolling in clouds. As if it had some kind of magical power, it actually ignored the spatial enchantment in the surroundings, penetrated the enchantment, and crushed the sacred fire that had just lit up the top of the Divine Flame Palace. At this moment, all the sages were shocked. The sacred fire symbol of the Divine Flame Palace was even raised. Who ate the bear's heart and leopard's guts? Who dared to stroke the tiger's whiskers? The expressions of everyone in the Elders' Guild changed. The attack this time was even more brilliant than before. The aura was perfectly hidden, and even the array of the Divine Flame Palace was nothing. With such a sudden attack at such a close distance, even a Sage King would find it difficult to protect the sacred fire symbol immediately. Guardian Lon, who was standing in the main palace, narrowed his eyes. This time, I don't believe that I can't find you thieves. He didn't directly rush toward the saber aura in the sky. Instead, he flew out of the Divine Flame Palace to look for the mastermind behind the scenes. At this moment, the Nirvana Mountain was suspended in midair, and it was cut into a neat row of stairs. The stairs went from bottom to top, and all the experts looked up subconsciously. The lingering radiance of the Saint Fire lit up the high platforms one by one. The sacred fire burned the Nirvana steps, illuminating the entire Divine Flame Palace. The Wuji old man peeled an orange and clicked his tongue in wonder as he looked at this scene. The Nirvana Mountain is the stage, and the sacred fire is the stairs. What a grand display! A bad-tempered elder from the Elders' Guild was furious. Damn it, so arrogant. Get lost. This supreme elder raised his palm toward the sky, and the rolling Nirvana sacred fire burned into a giant palm that covered the sky and smashed toward the stairs. Chi! Invisible saber aura spiraled out of nowhere and cut this supreme elder's Nirvana-burning sky palm into nothingness. This scene gave the powerhouses of the Godflame Palace a great shock. This elder was not an ordinary elder of Divine Flame Palace. He was one of the 10 supreme elders of the Elders Guild, and his cultivation was a rank 8-peak stage sage. The other party did not even show his true body, but he was able to break his palm. Don't act rashly. There seems to be someone up there. Suddenly, a supreme elder said in a heavy voice, "Rumble." A gust of wind blew, and the might of a sage descended upon the world. Using Divine Flame Palace's sacred fire as the opening fireworks is not dazzling enough. As the chilling laughter reverberated, a group of people walked towards them from the blazing, sacred flame steps. At this moment, all the disciples, protectors, deacons, and elders of Divine Flame Palace had interesting expressions. Wu Pianju's expression changed from calm to serious, and then to surprise and shock. She changed several times. Chapter 1564. Divine Investiture Ceremony. I challenge the Divine Flame Palace. My lord, one sure, will personally attend the battle. The cold shout echoed throughout the entire Sage Monarch region. At this moment, all the distinguished guests of the Divine Flame Palace stood up in shock. Challenging the Divine Flame Palace. A 9th-grade giant could split heaven and earth. A 9th-grade sect was the authority of the sacred boundary. There was actually someone who dared to challenge a 9th-grade sect in the sacred boundary. This was the Sage Monarch region. Challenging a 9th-grade sect was a show of strength to all the 9th-grade sects. This was definitely not a simple challenge. It was a warning to all the 9th-rank sects in the Sage Monarch domain and even the entire holy world. Warning all the 9th-grade sects in the sacred boundary? Oh my God, this was something that they did not even dare to think about. Who was it? How could he be so bold? Boom! A surge of saint aura swept up a gale and descended upon the Sage Monarch region. Everyone was shocked. Even the highly experienced saint talents on the saint talent ranking couldn't help but be surprised. On the vast stairs, a group of people seemed to have walked out of an epic legend. They were not like sage monarchs, but they were comparable to sage monarchs. They were all dressed in the same long black robes. There were men and women, old and young, and their auras were especially outstanding. Some were handsome and elegant. Their saint meridians emitted endless sonic booms. Every move they made created a storm that could destroy the world. Some were heroic. Their physiques contained the sun, moon, and stars. Above their heads were 5-colored clouds that piled up thousands of mountains and rivers. It was as if a heavenly lord had descended to the world to personally lead an expedition. Some were imposing. Their bodies were covered with 9 blazing suns. The suns were like a sea of fire that covered the sky and swallowed the 4 seas. Some were silent. There seemed to be lightning between their brows. The lightning around their bodies was like silver snakes. Some were like shadows that hid in the void for thousands of years. At a glance, there was an endless spiritual storm that covered the stars and the moon. Some were domineering. Their bodies were divided into yin and yang saint light, and there was an aura of life and death that could suppress the 4 seas. Some had the demeanor of a transcendent being. Their brows occasionally flashed with absolute confidence, as if they had seen through all the saints and understood all things. Some of them were devastatingly beautiful, flowing with light and overflowing with color. Their gentle and slender figures were like graceful dance songs amidst the clouds and mist, and it was as if there was a profound mystery hidden within every melody. Some of them were graceful and elegant, and their temperaments were like that of immortals descending from the heavens. Their silver divine splendor filled the sky, and they transformed into clouds and mist that drifted through the air. Their peerless beauty revealed a beautiful killing intent. Some of them had dragon-like blood energy. Their bodies were illusory cheilants, true dragons, and other ancient strange beasts. They towered over the heavens and the earth. Their sacred bodies seemed to have ancient beasts hiding within them. There were also some hale and hardy old men who looked ordinary, but their eyes were glowing with a sea of blood and boundless killing intent. Even those on the Saint Talent list didn't dare to look directly into their eyes. Some of them had a piercingly cold temperament. Their arms were crossed over their chests, and their steps were like roaming dragons. They drew upon supreme saber energy and emitted dazzling dragon cries. The saber intent traversed 100,000 miles, breaking through the ages and appearing in the present. Some of them had cold expressions with their hands behind their backs. Sword lotuses appeared with every step they took, and sword light fell from the sky, causing the world to change. His sharp aura soared into the heavens and shook the mountains and rivers. His sword intent swept through the 3,000 worlds. As of this moment, it wasn't just the Godflame Palace, but all of the other Tier 9 organizations in the Sage Monarch domain. All of the peak sages could clearly sense the extreme pressure from this team. The various Tier 9 sect representatives were shocked. This team was so powerful that even Sage Kings couldn't resist them. A total of 62 people. Even the weakest among them were 4 rank 7 peak stage sages. They could advance to rank 8 sage at any time. 16 rank 8 peak stage sages. A total of 20 rank 9 sages. A total of 18 rank 9 peak stage sages. However, the most terrifying ones were the 4 at the back of the team. Each of them was a half-step Sage King. 4 half-step Sage Kings. However, with such a powerful team as Tier 9 representatives who had seen a lot of things and studied the history of the Sacred Boundary, they couldn't recognize the origin of any of them. It was as if this team had appeared out of thin air and didn't exist in the history of the Sacred Boundary. It was too mysterious. It was so strange that no one could imagine their origin. Oh my God, what kind of team is this? They are 2F* King strong. Could it be? Do you remember those Tier 8 sects that were destroyed some time ago? I actually couldn't recognize a single one of them. Where did these people come from? The experts were shocked. The Tier 8 great experts looked at each other in shock. They were all old foxes. They instantly thought of the Tier 8 forces that were destroyed some time ago. It was very likely that they were related to this team. They really came. The 10 Supreme Elders of Divine Flame Palace's Elder Council stood up. Their expressions were especially solemn. The challengers of the Stars battle notice from that day had really come. And it was such a terrifying team. Any one of them who joined Divine Flame Palace would have authority over a region. There were also quite a few whose cultivation bases were not inferior to the current 10 Supreme Elders at all. At this moment, Byroyan's heart palpitated. It was as if there was a small flash of lightning in her heart. Her heart felt numb and warm, and the eternal holy fire in her body instantly quieted down. Wu Pianju narrowed her eyes and sneered. There are really people who aren't afraid of death. Oh, there will be a good show to watch. The 3 Tier 9 representatives looked at each other and looked at Divine Flame Palace's side playfully. Just as the Elder Council was about to transmit their voices to the other party, something unexpected happened. On the Nirvana platform, the 4 rank 7 peak stage sages actually knelt down on one knee with a bang. Rumble. Swoosh. 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 Strong winds blew, and holy light poured down at this moment. There were a total of 31 steps. On each step, there was an expert standing side by side. This mysterious team, be it male or female, old or young, all of them bowed. They either knelt on one knee, bowed, or lowered their heads in greeting. Welcome, my lord. This scene was like a historical moment that was frozen in front of everyone's eyes. No one was not shocked. No one was not horrified. All the Tier 8 great experts, Divine Flame Palace's disciples, deacons, and elders felt their scalps go numb. A chill rose from the bottom of their feet and rushed to the top of their heads. One had to know that each of the experts above was equivalent to or stronger than Divine Flame Palace's Elder Council. They were peerless experts who were on par with Divine Flame Palace's Palace Lord. However, these experts who could be considered great figures in a Tier 9 sect actually lowered their heads and bowed, kneeling on one knee. Rank 8 sages kneeling to welcome. Rank 9 sages kneeling on one knee. Half-step holy kings bowing to welcome. Everyone's breathing seemed to have stopped at this moment. Their gazes did not dare to leave the top of the Nirvana platform for even a moment. Everyone held their breaths, trembled, and were shocked. Even their brains were heating up. Just what kind of person would have the qualifications to make these experts greet him with such solemn etiquette? Even the Saint Talents on the Saint Talent list might not have this qualification. They did not have this ability to subdue them. Shang Guanju and Shunling Shuang in the main hall had even more interesting expressions. Cheers of joy. The young girl called out her master's name, and the venerable guardian even called out his F***king face. Under everyone's gazes, a figure finally appeared on the Nirvana platform. Chapter 1565. A shadow tore through the clouds and appeared above the Brahma platform. Roar! A dragon's roar shook heaven and earth. Outside the divine flame palace, Guardian Lan, who missed his target, was about to return to the palace when his pupils constricted. As one of the two great Guardian Venerables, Guardian Lan was knowledgeable and had seen all kinds of living things. However, at this moment, he was shocked by the scene in the sky above the divine flame palace, and he muttered to himself, "Oh my God, this kind of thing actually exists in this world after that legendary battle." In front of the main hall of the divine flame palace, a dragon's roar broke everyone's fantasy and shook the hearts of all the strong people. The first thing that entered everyone's eyes was neither some old senior nor some peerless strong person, but a reddish-gold dragon claw. The vast and majestic reddish-gold dragon claw tore through the clouds at a height of 100,000 feet. Then, an ancient dragon shining with golden light appeared out of thin air. Dragon's aura rolled in all directions and shook the world. The clouds in the sky above the divine flame palace were all scattered by the dragon's aura. The divine dragon had descended. Its body was hundreds of thousands of feet long, and its body was like a long river. Red clouds surrounded its body, and its four limbs were coiled up with 5 claws. It had the head of a qilin, the tail of a carp, a long beard, and deer-like horns. On the dragon's body, every golden dragon scale glowed with a reddish-gold divine glow, showing the signs of the dragon race in the past. Zhu Tianyan, the tyrant from the waste region on the Saint Talent ranking, suddenly stood up and looked at the ancient dragon shining with golden light. His eyes shone brightly, and he roared in excitement and shock. Divine Dragon! This is a dragon with the true bloodline of the divine dragon race. Everyone in the divine flame palace, and even all the guests, were shocked by this scene until their mouths trembled. The pervasive dragon's aura shook the space. Dragon's shadow shuttled back and forth between heaven and earth, and a dragon's song was faintly being sung and sung. It was as if what appeared in front of everyone was not a dragon, but a part of the dragon race's brilliant civilization and history. At this moment, who could remain calm? Probably no one. All the guests in the divine flame palace were in an uproar. My ancestor, this is a true ancient dragon. I actually saw a true descendant of the divine dragon in my lifetime. This is the first time I've seen a descendant of the divine dragon after so many years. Could it be that the dragon race is challenging the human race? What kind of immortal foundation is this? He's a F***king descendant of an ancient dragon. Oh my God. The dragon's horns are like crimson jade, and the dragon's body is surrounded by crimson clouds. His dragon scales shone with golden light, and his dragon claws cut through the clouds. This is the real ancient Taishi dragon. I've said it. Almost all the experts were driven mad, and they even forgot that they had come to participate in the god ordainment ceremony. The super monster was so scared that he froze on the spot. In history, the descendants of the divine dragon only existed in distant legends and in a few dragon species dimensions. There were no poor humans in the sacred boundary. Those who had seen the descendants of the divine dragon could be counted on one's fingers. This was an existence that was truly comparable to the descendants of the demon emperors and gods. From its body, It was enough to tell that the divine dragon that once soared under the starry sky of the universe was so majestic. It was simply a miracle among all living things. No, look, there's a palanquin on top of the mystical dragon. There's someone in the palanquin. The moment an almighty exclaimed, all the rank, 8 almighties in the divine flame palace activated their saint power or spiritual perception to look over. When they saw that there was really a palace-like genius on top of the mystical dragon, they instantly felt as if they had been struck by lightning. What kind of a mortal was this? To be able to make a descendant of the divine dragon carry a palanquin? That was a peerless genius of the dragon race who was equivalent to the saint talents on the saint talent list. In terms of potential, identity, and combat strength of the same level, the descendants of the divine dragon were not inferior to the descendants of the demon emperors and gods. In the dragon race, they were supreme figures. How could they carry a palanquin for a human? That was a scene that they did not even dare to imagine. Today, it was actually happening right in front of their eyes. Everyone's worldview was turned upside down. Wu Piju stared at the genius on top of the palanquin and squeezed out a few words of disbelief. A palanquin carried by the divine dragon? Even the saint talent list expressions were very interesting. A descendant of the divine dragon of the same level as them would carry a palanquin for a human? What kind of person was qualified to sit inside? Even Saint King did not have this qualification. Under everyone's gaze, the majestic Taishi ancient dragon circled down from the clouds. Its vast dragon aura caused the divine flame palace's protective array to creak, and cracks appeared in the atmosphere. When the dragon flew down, all the almighties finally saw the figure on top of the palanquin clearly. On the dragon phoenix share that was shining with golden light sat a peerless and refined young man. Beside him was a group of peerless beauties. The elegant young man wore a snow-white robe and a jade belt around his waist. The starlight embellished his robe, making him shine brightly. His sharp eyebrows reflected his starry eyes, and he was handsome and charming. A domineering aura flashed between his brows as his eyes looked directly below the divine flame palace. This scene was unforgettable for all the monsters on the demon talents list. Beside the young man, there were as many fairies as the clouds. Beautiful and beautiful women could be said to be in groups. A gentle and cute, auspicious beast girl bent down beside him, swinging her jade-like delicate arms and massaging his legs. A crimson beauty leaned behind the young man and gently massaged his shoulders with her jade-like hands. Her movements were incomparably gentle. The green-clothed fairy was elegant and dignified. Her delicate face was like the blue lotus fairy, who was untainted by the dust of the world. She raised her jade-like fingers and gently placed a roaming soul fruit beside the young man's mouth. The devastatingly beautiful Jian family young mistress had an exquisite figure and blushed face. She was as beautiful as a fairy and was just like a sleeping beauty. She was drunk on the young man's right knee. The little demon empress, one of the top 10 beauties on the demon talents list, half of her snow-white shoulders were exposed. She was slightly lying on the young man's left knee, and her beautiful lips were curved into a sly smile. Her collarbones were outlined, and her snow-white neck was like a swan's. Her beauty was unparalleled, and every smile and frown could be described as peerless and enchanting. The last cold and elegant fairy was even more seductive. She leaned into the young man's embrace, and her hair was as white as snow. Her figure was delicate yet flawless. Her lips were red, and her veil was like smoke dyed with autumn frost. She was like a cold moon hanging in the sky, distant and unreachable. She was like a lazy kitten, leaning into the young man's embrace. He held the fairy's soft and slender waist with one hand and supported his cheek with the other. A cynical smile hung on the corner of his mouth. The 6 beauties that were as beautiful as fairies made the young man look like a king playing in the mortal world. He was cynical and proud of the world. The moment the ancient dragon shining with golden light approached the Brahma steps, the silver-robed young man slowly got up, leaving the beauties alone on the chair. Many experts opened their mouths slightly, and the corners of their mouths trembled. They looked especially sluggish. He slowly walked down the dragon palanquin and down the Brahma steps. Every time the young man walked down a step, there would be two peerless experts bowing their heads or kneeling to greet him. Time seemed to have stopped at this scene. The divine palace's scenery, the Brahma steps, the ancient dragon carrying the palanquin. Outside the sacred monarch region, 109th grade families. The divine flames flickered and suddenly surged. The young man here was like a dragon galloping for thousands of miles, and he wanted to compete with the sacred monarch. An unprecedented battle intent turned into a torrential momentum. With the young man as the center, the 62 experts burst forth and soared into the sky, engulfing the entire Divine Flame Palace. The pressure on everyone in the Divine Flame Palace increased sharply. It was as if every step he took would force the Divine Flame Palace back a step. Countless experts' expressions changed. The battle intent of this group of people was too terrifying. It was as if they wanted to fight to the death with the Divine Flame Palace. How overbearing! Under everyone's gaze, the silver-robed young man walked step by step from the Brahma steps to the front of the experts. Lin Chen stepped into the Divine Flame Palace. Chapter 1566. When he stepped into the Divine Flame Palace, Lin Chen smirked as he faced the experts from all directions. The first thing he said was, "This is the Divine Flame Palace? Sorry, this place is a little too small. I thought I was in my own backyard." At this moment, all the elders of the Divine Flame Palace twitched their mouths, treating the 9th-ranked sect of the Sage Monarch region as his backyard. 2F** King Arrogant. On the palanquin, the little demon empress stared at Lin Chen's back as her eyes flickered. "You finally reached this step. It's time to bring your goddess back." Then she regained her playful and sly demeanor as she smiled seductively at the girls. "Hee, how's the 6 phoenixes circling dragon I designed? Isn't it cool and cool?" Fairy Crimson smiled. "It's quite fun." Bai Qian smiled happily. "Master is getting more and more handsome." Jin Qingsheng spat. "What design? I'm going to lie on his lap." "What kind of stupid idea is that?" The little demon empress had a funny expression. "Weren't you quite happy just now?" Lung Yueqi smiled. "All right, stop fooling around. Let's go down. Don't drag him down." Divine Flame Plaza. The moment Lin Chen stepped into the Divine Flame Palace. The Yi family, Zhao family, 100 family forces, and 10,000 sect experts were all stunned. Divine Dragon Palanquin. What kind of foundation did he have to bring out such a lineup? Especially all the monstrous geniuses. The moment they saw Lin Chen, they felt as if they were struck by lightning. It's actually him? His temperament changed too much. Especially when the experts knelt to welcome him. The Divine Dragon Palanquin and the numerous beauties surrounded him. His aura was too terrifying. So much so that they didn't even recognize Lin Chen the moment he appeared. When Lin Chen stepped into the Divine Flame Plaza, all the servants stood up and followed closely behind. They slowly walked around Lin Chen and stood beside Lin Chen like stars surrounding the moon. This scene shocked all the powerhouses until their hearts trembled. Lin Chen was actually the master of this group of people. What kind of background did he have? It would be very difficult for a 9th-ranked sect to bring out such a lineup. With just this group of people, if they wanted to touch Lin Chen, even a sage ruler would have to think twice. Lin Chen ignored Wu Pianju and the others in front of him. He walked to Bai Ruoyan's side and held her hand. "Am I late, Sister?" Facing Lin Chen's eyes, the fairy's heart trembled slightly, and she smiled sweetly. Before she could finish speaking, Lin Chen pulled her into his embrace. This time, Bai Ruoyan's face was flushed red, but she didn't resist at all. "Did someone bully you?" "Yes." "Then I'll beat him up." The conversation between the two was clearly heard by everyone present. "Beat up the Einerjar? Good fellow. You really dare to say that." Wu Pianju's expression was so calm that it was frightening. Wait a minute." Suddenly, A certain super monster's face was filled with terror. Lin Shun is the lord of this group of experts? Then the person who challenged the godly flame palace is Lin Shun. The geniuses and the powerful human figures of the heavenly sanctuary all looked at each other and stared at each other in dismay. It was extremely frightening. They thought back to the words that Lin Chen's clone left behind when he challenged the demon genius list a few months ago. I'm in a hurry. I have something important to do. At that time, everyone thought he was crazy. What could be more important than being nominated for the first place on the demon genius list? A mighty figure of the heavenly sanctuary region was so shocked that he trembled all over. Good fellow. So the important thing he said was to challenge the godly flame palace? Compared to challenging a ninth-ranked sect, the title of first place on the demon genius list was nothing. The two sides were not on the same level at all. Did his clone really take first place? Lin Chun, you're crazy. Fei Qingyue covered her red lips with her hand. So the important thing, he said, the thing he wanted to discuss with Martial Uncle, was to challenge the godly flame palace. Fei Qinyu, who was beside Fei Qingyue, shook her head and exclaimed. Even though she had expected it, she was still shocked when she saw Lin Chen step into the godly flame palace with her own eyes. This child is ruins. The eyes of the godly flame palace master flickered, and her heart throbbed. She did not expect him to really come. She had been paying attention to this child for a long time, but she did not expect him to grow so quickly. Seeing the forces around him, the hope of the godly flame palace master was reignited. Perhaps this was the last chance to force the godly flame palace to change. Wu Pianju's pride was higher than the sky. He wanted to create history himself, so he did not bring the people of the martial god family to the godly flame palace's god coronation ceremony. Therefore, this was the best chance. With Lin Shun here, the traditional factions of the godly flame palace could work together. The 10 supreme elders of the Elders Guild looked at each other. Lin Shun, the genius who expanded his acupoints by 30,000 times? I heard that he is related to Goddess by Ruoyan. It's actually him. Previously, he challenged Lin Shun on the demon ranking. I thought he was not the same person, but I did not expect him to have such ability and foundation. The 10 supreme elders were highly respected and had great authority. In the past, they did not even place Lin Shun in their eyes. Which one of them was not a peak saint? Why would they pay attention to a small acupoint expansion cultivator? At most, they would be slightly surprised by his acupoint expansion multiplier. However, the potential and battle strength to become a top expert was not something that could be determined by acupoint expansion multiplier. At this time, a representative of the godly flame palace could not help but scold. Lin Shun, what are you doing here? Lin Shun glanced at that person and sneered. Nonsense, of course I'm here to challenge the godly flame palace and bring back my woman. The group of godly flame palace's representatives said in unison. You already have so many beauties. What else do you lack? Lin Chen shrugged. Didn't you see that I was lacking one just now? Everyone. F*CK. You are Lin Shun. Wu Pianju moved through the void like a ghost and arrived in front of Lin Shun. Almost at the same time, Lin Shun shielded by Ruoyan behind him. This detail made many experts squint their eyes. This kid had followed Wu Pianju's reaction. Seeing Wu Pianju for the first time, Lin Shun also saw the foundation of the Saint Talent list. His martial god bloodline was almost clear at a glance. It could be said that her whole body was covered in the light of attribute light balls. She was in a completely different dimension from Shun Lingshuang. Of course, Shun Lingshuang's bloodline was not inferior to his, but it had not reached the stage of rapid growth. With Lin Chen's means, he could only see a little of Wu Pianju's foundation. However, he could not see through her, and she could not see through him. Lin Shun said indifferently, That's right, I'm handsome. Compared to my name, I prefer people to call me another low-profile title, such as the most handsome person in the sacred boundary or something. The monster's mouths twitched. What the hell was low profile? Wu Pianju's eyes were sharp as she said coldly. You dare to challenge the Divine Flame Palace in the sacred monarch domain, which is a disgrace to a rank 9 force. I can understand that you are prepared to face the Divine Flame Palace and even more rank 9 forces, right? Lin Chen laughed mockingly. Your understanding is also at the level of a rank 9. Boom! Wu Pianju's anger soared into the sky, and holy flames covered the sky above her head, burning fiercely and filling the sky. How dare you ruin my plans? Looks like you are tired of living. The monsters all retreated, and the elders of the Divine Flame Palace propped up the barrier. Whoosh! At that moment, Guardian Lan appeared beside Wu Pianju like a blade. Divine Sun, please calm down for now. Guardian Lan stood in front of Wu Pianju and looked down at Lin Shun. The pressure of a sacred monarch spread out, causing the space to crack. Young man, you seem to think that you are very strong. You dare to attack the Divine Flame Palace with just 4 half-step sacred kings? Boom! 2 black-robed men flashed to Lin Chen's 2 sides and released their half-step sacred king aura. Whoosh! Bang! 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 2 waves of sacred king aura were on par with Guardian Lan. As long as Guardian Lan moved a finger, they would immediately attack and raise the divine flames square to the ground. Lin Shun was calm and collected as he stood 10 feet away from Protector Lan. His demeanor had once again widened the horizons of the older generation cultivators. If it were them, they might not be able to be so calm in the battle between a sacred king and 2 half-step sacred kings. How could this person be unaffected? A sacred king. A living sacred king. This is the first time I have seen one. Now, it doesn't seem so scary. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. If we really fight, I am confident that I can kill him. Chapter 1567. 2 half-step Saint Kings and 1 Saint King's aura clashed with each other, setting off a violent gust of wind. The group of super geniuses suddenly felt a sharp pain in their chests, as if they were about to be torn apart. This was the power of Saint Kings and those who were infinitely close to Saint Kings. If not for the protection of the elders, just the Saint aura from the close-range collision was enough to crush these so-called geniuses. The Saint aura from the 2 half-step Saint Kings might not be comparable to a real Saint King, but it was not far off. Sword will and saber will. Guardian Lan's face was solemn. These 2 half-step Saint Kings were not to be underestimated. Their sword will and saber will were extremely pure, and they could enter the realm of sword will and saber will at any time. It was not an exaggeration to call them the strongest half-step Saint Kings. Once either of them stepped into the Saint King realm, they could compete with him. If the 2 of them joined forces, it would not be a problem to block him, but it was almost impossible to determine the winner in a short time. Sword Saint and Saber Saint, the most troublesome type. Guardian Lan was not afraid of fighting, but the most important thing was not to involve Shenyan Palace and Wu Shenxi. If they offended Wu Shenxi, Shenyan Palace would be in trouble. Enough! Elder Huomei of the Elder Council spoke. He looked at Lin Chen's group and said in a deep voice, Lin Shun, Shenyan Palace is not a place you can challenge as you wish. Since you are here, you must pay the price. Hall of Guardians, this group of people is a serious threat to the safety of Shenyan Palace. Take them down. Everyone was shocked. It seemed that Shenyan Palace was determined to fight. The face of a 9th-rank sect could not be humiliated. However, the Hall of Guardians was indifferent, and the scene was very quiet. The Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Guardians, a mature, tall, and beautiful woman, looked at the few old men and women in the sky and said very calmly, Sorry, we only listen to the orders of the Palace Master and Guardian Shangguan. Shangguan Zhu and Lan Jingyu were the 2 guardians of Shenyan Palace. One was in charge of the Hall of Guardians and was in charge of external affairs. The other was in charge of the Heavenly Temple and was in charge of internal affairs. This was also the reason why Wu Pianju was able to quickly gain control of most of the core members of the Divine Flame Palace. As long as he could get Lan Jingyu to join his faction, The Heavenly Temple's experts who were in charge of the internal affairs of the Divine Flame Palace will be under his command. Damn it! Elder Hua Mei scolded angrily. The other elder immediately stood up and shouted coldly. Do you really think my Divine Flame Palace is made of mud? Elders of the Array Formation Hall, activate the Array Formation to meet the enemy. This old man doesn't believe that my Divine Flame Palace's palace protecting Grand Array still can't deal with this bunch of hooligans. The Heaven Opening Spirit Array Hall elders all stepped into the air and took their positions. However, there was no response. Silence of God. Guardian Longing Yu was held back by 2 half-step Saint Kings. Both sides were enemies, and neither side moved. Hall, sect, great divine. At this time, a handsome middle-aged man stood out and walked to Lin Chen's side, smiling confidently. The northern formation of the Divine Flame Palace is called the Big Dipper 7 Stars Heaven Burning Formation. South Formation, Flame Saber Dragon Breaking Formation. West Saint Tian, as he called out names, the faces of the elders from the Council of Elders turned uglier. When they received the message from the Hall of Arrays, their faces changed color. Lin Chen shrugged and said with a smile, Everyone, don't waste your energy. Before we came here, we had already dismantled most of your formations. With this level of skill, it's not even enough for a certain handsome guy in our team to warm up. The middle-aged man nodded. My lord, keep a low profile. I took some time to break the array, like 15 minutes. Lin Chen nodded. Well, I was actually testing if you were humble enough. One must be honest and humble and keep a low profile like me. It seems like you haven't forgotten my teachings. You're worth teaching. The man bowed. Thank you for your teachings, my lord. The mouths of all the guests couldn't help but twitch as they watched the two of them singing the same tune. Damn it, are they still human? These guys, they actually broke all of Xinyan Palace's guardian arrays in advance. The scariest thing was they did it without anyone noticing. This is the territory of a rank 9 giant. Do you think this is your back garden? The 10 great elders, whose faces had turned green, shouted coldly. Heavenly Temple, take down these madmen. However, there was complete silence. The atmosphere was extremely quiet and awkward. The hot-tempered Elder Qi Yun could not help but curse. Kill your head. Were they? This time, it was Lan Jingyu's turn to be shocked. At this time, a rank 2 elder rushed in and reported with cold sweat dripping down his back. Elders, more than 10 captains and team leaders of Heavenly Temple, are missing. Their spirit tablets are all broken. Their spirit tablets were all broken. Did that mean they were all dead? Heavenly Temple had many powerful rank 7 and rank 8 saints. Stop shouting. Your Heavenly Temple is already done for. Lin Chen smiled mockingly. He looked at Wu Pianju and said with a cold smile, How did you secretly kill the loyal officials of Divine Flame Palace? I will use a faster and more accurate method to carry all your people away. The entire Heavenly Temple was groomed to be Wu Pianju's assassins. Lin Shun had the Destruction Twins Heaven and Earth Annihilation monitor Divine Flame Palace during this period of time, so he knew Divine Flame Palace like the back of his hand. Before the operation, Ji Wuchen, Heaven and Earth Annihilation, Xiao Ling and Fei Wushuang acted together. With Fong Ling and Lang Fanyan's cooperation, they had already secretly killed a large number of Heavenly Temple's top experts. Now, only Lan Jingyu was left in Heavenly Temple. When it came to assassinations, in front of the Destruction Twins, who were renowned in the Heavenly Sage, Wu Pianju's Heavenly Temple was nothing. Not to mention, the Destruction Twins had Fairy Baiyu who could control spatial divine arts, Fei Wushuang who could use all kinds of auxiliary cultivation methods, and Jiang Taishu who could hide from the heavens. It was a perfect combination. If they really wanted to assassinate, in a situation where there were many of them, the saints below rank 9 would be like chopping vegetables. This time, it was Wu Pianju's turn to be shocked. The manpower that he had painstakingly trained was actually wiped out in such a short period of time. In just 2 days or so, no one knew about it. The palace's guardian formation was all destroyed. The guardian hall did not listen to his orders, and the heavenly temple was tragically assassinated. The faces of the elders of Divine Flame Palace grew uglier, as if they had eaten **T. Each of them had an uncomfortable look on their faces. Even the palace master of Divine Flame Palace could not help but secretly give a thumbs up. It was perfect. He definitely did not step into Divine Flame Palace with bravado. He was fully prepared. If it were not for the Guardian Hall and those loyal disciples who were still here, this young man would have already started fighting. With his prediction and lineup, he did not fear the current Divine Flame Palace at all. All the guests sucked in a breath of cold air. F***CK. He had wiped out all of Divine Flame Palace's backup plans. What kind of godlike team was this? The three ninth-rank sect representatives looked at each other in shock, especially Xing Jiutian. The shock in his eyes was even more intense. This feeling of wiping out the opponent without anyone noticing. There was an inside story. The inside story was too strong. It was them. It was definitely them. This kind of action was too F***king similar to the modus operandi that had wiped out all kinds of 8th-rank forces previously. Good lad, this step is really deep. Fei Qinyu could not help but praise in a low voice. Lin Chen's step of destroying the heavenly temple would cause a chain reaction. The super demons looked at Lin Chen's frivolous and handsome face and the words "the most handsome in all heavens" on his robe, and their hearts were in turmoil. F***CK. How many moves did he predict the Divine Flame Palace? This Lin Chen was obviously super strong, but he was overly cautious. Chapter 1568. The middle-aged man beside Lin Chen smiled and said to the elders of the Elders Guild, "You think you're on the 5th level, and we're on the 3rd level, but our master is on the 1001st level. We've already predicted all of your moves." The faces of the elders turned pale. Didn't this mean that the only power they could use was the guest elders present? Their only choice was to summon the Grand Elders. However, the Grand Elders of the Divine Flame Palace would not come out of seclusion so easily. Many of them were already peak sage-level experts before the sacred boundary was officially established. After many wars between races in the Antiquity Age, their sacred bodies were full of wounds, and the Grand Elders had many old injuries. Damn it, the most hateful thing is that this kid sneaked an attack on the Heavenly Temple. The Lawkeeper Hall can't be used, and the Palace Master and Shang Guanjue are on their side. The elders glanced at the crowd with resentment. It seemed that they could only summon the Grand Elder. Boom! At this moment, 20 beams of sacred light rose from behind the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace. The Mountain Sea Prison could not even compare to 1% of it. Lin Chen was calm and collected. 20 white-haired old women and old men appeared in the direction of the main hall. These old men were all skin and bones, and their faces were thin and yellow. However, there was an unusually strong viciousness and ferocity between their brows. They were all 9th Revolution saints. All the experts were shocked. They're here. The Grand Elders of the Divine Flame Palace. The old monsters that existed before the sacred boundary was established. 29th Revolution saints. The foundation of the Divine Flame Palace was revealed. The moment the Grand Elders appeared, they exchanged glances with the 10 Grand Elders of the Elders Guild and understood the reason for the problem. The 9th Revolution Saints' spiritual light reaction was extremely fast. This was something that Lin Chen had long expected. "Ha, good. This is the first time I've fought against the old monsters of a rank 9 sect. I've long wanted to see the old monster who fought against the Azura tribe in the past. I'm getting more and more excited. Let's go. I'll bring them to climb the mountain." "Master, let's go." The servants behind Lin Chen laughed loudly. The rank 9 experts from the 18th level of Saint Prison moved out. There were 20 of them. They stomped on the ground and disappeared like lightning. TSK. Rip. Almost at the same time, the 20 Grand Elders of Divine Flame Palace instantly vanished. Bang, 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 bang. The spatial crystal walls in all directions were faintly trembling and rumbling. "A rank!" 8 Almighty exclaimed. "It's the great spatial shift. Saints at the ninth level of heaven opening could shift space and concentrate their saint force attacks in a smaller area. Their power would be stronger and the aftershocks would be smaller. 4 sixth revolution saints and above, if they did not fight with all their strength, they could move to the void space within the spatial crack to fight. It wouldn't cause any casualties to the people around it. Of course, if it was a fight to the death, that might not be the case. However, no matter what, the Godly Flame Palace had already made their stance clear. They wanted to start a war with Lin Shun. Lin Shun immediately had 10 rank 8 servants and 4 rank 7 peak stage servants beside him. Their figures moved as they instantly pierced through the void and appeared in front of the experts of Divine Flame Palace. In just an instant, their ordinary elders and deacons were all suppressed. Inside Divine Flame Palace, all the people of Wu Pianju's faction, disciples, elders, and deacons were captured and suppressed. Anyone who dared to move a finger would die. The Divine Flame Plaza began to descend into chaos. Lan Jingyu's pupil shrunk. The worst outcome still happened. This group of people had their own unique abilities. When they worked together, they were like a tiger that had grown wings. Although there were many experts among the outer hall disciples of Divine Flame Palace, in front of rank 7 and rank 8 saints, they were as weak as infants. The female disciples and protectors of the Lawkeeper Hall were wild with joy. Divine Flame Palace was saved. In fact, if they really fought, the current strength of Divine Flame Palace was not afraid of Lin Shen's group. Divine Flame Palace was a declining rank 9 force. In terms of the number of experts, they might be slightly inferior to other rank 9 giants. However, in terms of peak experts, the reason why Divine Flame Palace could stand until now was due to the contributions of the 2 Saint King level protectors. One was Shangguan Zhu, who came from the Saint Talent list. The other was a veteran expert who had made a name for himself in the Sacred Boundary. After the previous palace lord established a contract with him, he was bestowed with a great fortune and became a Saint King. He was willing to protect Divine Flame Palace for thousands of years. With the foundation of a rank 9 force, just the 2 Saint King level protectors were enough to look down on countless experts. The 2 venerables controlled Heavenly Temple and Law Enforcement Hall. They could block most of Lin Shen's experts. However, the Law Enforcement Hall could not be moved. Heavenly Temple was assassinated and only one venerable appeared. Their Elder Council was immediately forced into a dead end. Even the 3 rank 9 representatives had solemn expressions after seeing this. Good lad, he forced Divine Flame Palace to the point where they can only use their trump card. This team is not only strong in terms of the number of experts and their cultivation. More importantly, they are proficient in various fields, which brings about a multiplicative effect when combined. To be fair, if any of our forces were to go against this team, we would not have a good ending. Xing Jiutian fell into deep thought. However, he still could not figure out where these people came from. The Elder Council was flustered and exasperated. They had already sent a message to the Grand Elder, but for some reason, he did not appear. Perhaps the various Grand Elders and the Grand Elders were observing the situation. Are they going to start fighting? Haha! If Wu Pianju had brought his Wu family here, wouldn't it save so much trouble? We still have to clean up his mess for him. I don't care. If they want to fight, then let's fight. The 9 Saint Geniuses finally stood up. Their fighting spirit rose. Don't be so hot-tempered, Lin Shun. At this moment, a white-haired old man spoke. It was the Wuji Elder. Your trip this time has a deeper meaning. It's not as simple as challenging Divine Flame Palace. Everyone looked at him. Lin Shun recognized this old senior and cupped his hand slightly. Oh, Junior Lin Chun greets the old senior. I remember the kindness of the demon race last time. What advice do you have for me? The Wuji Elder stroked his beard and said with a smile, Lin Shun, since you and Wu Pianju are both heavenly talents of the new generation, why don't we let the 2 of you decide this matter? After saying that, the Wuji Elder smiled meaningfully. You don't want to fight to the death with Divine Flame Palace. You still want your little girlfriend to take over, don't you? As soon as he said that, all the powerful figures exchanged glances. The Wuji elder had seen through Lin Chen's intentions. Lin Chen looked over. Wu Pianju's gaze just happened to meet his. The two of them looked at each other, and Lin Chen said with a smile, "That's good. If I eliminate Wu Pianju, your Divine Flame Palace won't need to compete in the Divine Lord Investiture ceremony. The position of Palace Lord will belong to my sister Ruan." Wu Pianju looked up to the sky and laughed as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Ha ha ha. I'm really curious where your confidence comes from." Lin Chen's smile was frivolous. "Because I'm handsome, everyone." The two of them were tit for tat. All the guests had a strong sense of curiosity. One was the son of a martial god, a heavenly talent, and the other was a young man who had appeared out of nowhere and challenged the demon race list. Who will be able to surpass him? Chapter 1569. It's actually the two of them fighting in the end. How exciting. His clone challenged the entire demon genius list. Lin Chen might have a chance against Wu Pianju. You don't take the eternal god seriously. Who in the sacred boundary can create an advanced orange grade technique before becoming a holy king? This battle will determine the future of the Divine Flame Palace. The Divine Flame Palace's heavenly temple has been uprooted. They definitely need a force to rise up. That's right. Lin Chen's move is very deep. He has sealed off the Divine Flame Palace's escape route. He struck first and got rid of the heavenly temple. It's equivalent to cutting off half of the Divine Flame Palace's right-hand man. If they want to make up for this gap, the Divine Flame Palace will definitely choose to rope in Wu Pianju or Lin Chen. Which of the guests present wasn't a big shot of a region? Their eyes were extremely sharp. The mighty figures who were Second Revolution sages and above had seen through many factors of Lin Chen's trip. If the entire Divine Flame Palace was united, it wouldn't be a problem to fight against Lin Chen's team. However, now was the time when the two factions were divided. Lin Chen's appearance and suppression would be the true turning point for the Divine Flame Palace. As for the top 10 strongest rank, 8 forces who had signed a contract with Wu Pianju, they saw deeper and further. This battle would directly determine the direction of nearly half of the sacred boundary. Everyone, I'll personally settle a small matter today. We'll postpone the results of the Great God Investiture ceremony. Wu Pianju waved her sleeves and announced to everyone present. The distinguished guests immediately responded and retreated into the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace. "My lord," the servants transmitted their voices to Lin Chen. He raised his hand. "It's okay. Proceed according to the original plan. Guo Jianshou and the rest don't transmit their voices. Let them continue to fight with the Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Palace. We need a battle of the same level to awaken everyone's fighting spirit." Lin Chen smiled mysteriously and transmitted his voice. "In terms of endurance, we're not afraid of anyone. We can withstand a battle of attrition, but the higher-ups of the Divine Flame Palace might not." In the next moment, Lin Chen announced, "I'll hammer him to death. If the Divine Flame Palace dares to do anything rash, you guys attack immediately and hammer them to death." Lin Chen said these words without any hesitation, causing many powerhouses to feel a chill run down their spines. Then, the disguised Fong Ling and Lang Fanyan took a step back. Lan Jingyu withdrew his aura. Wu Pianju, on the other hand, had regained his usual calm demeanor. The expressions of the various saint geniuses and monsters were extremely interesting. Lin Chen said, "If you can defeat me, you can continue to be the Divine Flame Palace Lord, and my people will leave immediately." Wu Pianju said indifferently, "Don't talk nonsense. No matter what conditions you raise, I will be the only one who wins." As the two of them chatted and laughed, they exuded absolute and powerful confidence. This was the confidence that came from the strength and foundation of both sides. When faced with these two heaven-defying people, who would dare to be so absolute? The strongest dark horse, Lin Chen, against the most talented martial god's son, Wu Pianju. No one had expected this battle to turn out this way. Wow! Shunling Shuang, who was in the main palace, jumped up and waved her small fists. Master is so cool. Beat him up, beat him up. Shangguan Ju's beautiful eyes flickered, and her beautiful lips curled up slightly. Back then, the young man who needed her protection in secret and needed her to suppress various forces to ensure his safety had now grown into a true giant. With a group of people around him, no one in the entire sacred boundary could touch him now. Even a Saint King would have to think twice. As expected of the kid who slept with the demonic empress. Oh no, slept with by the demonic empress. Shangguan Ju sighed in amazement, and then revealed deep doubts. But where did this brat find so many peerless cultivators? There are 4 half-step Saint Kings, and their mental states have reached perfection. They may take that crucial step at any time. There are also a few peak 9 transformation cultivators, and they're not far from half-step Saint Kings. They're all ruthless people outside the Divine Flame Palace. Shui Yifan, the martial saint who stood proudly on the high platform of the Divine Flame Palace, stepped out. A sharp light flashed past his eyes as he stared at Wu Pianju. Wu Pianju, you should know the goal and importance of our operation this time. If you lose, no one can bear this responsibility for you. Wu Pianju waved her hand at him without turning her head. I swear in the name of the martial god that a wild kid of unknown origin has no chance of defeating me. The corner of his mouth curved into an absolutely confident arc. There is no one below the heaven-opening realm who can defeat me. The 9 saint geniuses chose to wait and see. Only Wuji Yajura Qian Yingxue stared at Lin Chen's handsome face and fell into deep thought. She felt like she had seen this kid somewhere before. At this moment, Wu Pianju flew up and floated in the air. Lan Jingyu retreated. Lin Chen's servants temporarily retreated to the side. Outside the Divine Flame Palace, in a pavilion, the servants gathered, and Lung Yueqi and the other girls stood there to watch the battle. The cold and beautiful Yi Lixue slowly walked over. When the little demon empress and her mother looked at each other again, their expressions changed several times and were quite complicated. A moment later, Yi Lixue sighed softly and said, Qingwu, you made the right bet in the end. The little demon empress shook her head. No, mother, you are wrong. My relationship with Lin Shun is not what you think it is. He is my best friend. I will not do the same thing mother did to father and make the same mistake. Yi Qingwu's beautiful eyes flashed as she stared in Lin Chen's direction and said seriously, his stage should not be limited to the sacred boundary, and he should not live in our narrow struggles. Yi Qingwu smiled sweetly, her beauty unparalleled. All we need to do is to watch him quietly. Yi Lixue was stunned. Looking at her daughter's pure smile, her heart could not calm down for a long time. On the other side, in the entire Divine Flame Plaza and even the empty Nirvana Valley and Sacred Flame Mountain, only Lin Shun and Wu Pianju were left. The endless spatial vibrations in the surroundings did not affect the two of them. Lan Jingyu personally presided over the Divine Flame Palace and the Sacred Flame space to the maximum. The space and area around the Divine Flame Plaza expanded by more than 100,000 times. In the void, Wu Pianju's Saint Acupoints surged with light. She frowned slightly, and 2 bolts of lightning suddenly shot out of her eyes like dancing silver snakes. Lin Chen was calm and collected. His Saint Acupoints shone brightly, and he opened his mouth and exhaled. Wind howled, space distorted, and lightning exploded. Bang, bang, bang. The entire Divine Flame Palace exploded in the sky, and lightning flashed everywhere, turning into a thunderstorm. The mouths of the monsters trembled. Damn, are these 2 people even human? They had not really made a move, but one of them looked and the other exhaled. It was as if they wanted to tear the sky down. Wu Pianju sneered. You have some foundation, but that's all there is to it. Lin Chen laughed mockingly. Only children use their eyes to fight. Show me some real power, martial godson. Wu Pianju said, As you wish. As soon as she finished speaking, Wu Pianju flicked her sleeves and instantly activated her Saint Acupoints. Almost no one below the Saint Acupoints noticed her attack trajectory. Boom! Rumbling sounds could be heard. A certain super monster standing in the main hall wiped his sweat and said in surprise, "Why is it so hot?" When the monsters and geniuses looked up at the sky, their pupils constricted. They saw that the entire Divine Flame Palace had been burned to a crisp. A large number of huge palms covered the sky, and the five-fingered sacred flame palace slammed down. Hiss! All the monsters sucked in a breath of hot air. It was the Divine Flame Palace's ultimate technique, the nine-layered burning sky palm. The nine-layered burning sky palm might not be much. However, this was 200 F*King moves of the nine-layered burning sky palm. The monster, wiping his sweat, trembled and subconsciously took a few steps back. 200 moves of the nine-layered burning sky palm. This is the ultimate technique of a martial god. All the monsters present felt despair. He had used 200 intermediate orange-grade ultimate techniques in half a breath's time. This was the current generation's Saint Acupoint. How could they win against such a monster? Or rather, there was no possibility of winning. The ultimate technique of a martial god was unparalleled in the world. Chapter 1570. The giant palms, burning with a nine-layered fire seal, came crashing down. Each flame palm was hundreds of thousands of feet in size, burning with a high temperature that could burn mountains and boil seas, distorting space. It was not that the bigger the attack, the more powerful it was. The massive nine-layered burning sky palm was more concentrated, enough to easily crush a perfected heaven-opening realm cultivator. Wu Pianju was definitely not a perfected Saint Heart cultivator. Just this move alone was enough to kill a large number of late-stage or perfected heaven-opening realm cultivators. A total of 200 moves of the nine layers burning sky palms, with the force of a palm that could break 10,000 mountains and earth veins, annihilate millions of miles of the galaxy, like a rain of fire pouring down on Lin Chen's position. This move, in the eyes of the monstrous geniuses list, was just a common move on the Saint Talent list. The 9 Saint Geniuses were all staring at Lin Chen. How was he going to deal with them? 200 moves? Who are you looking down on? Lin Chen looked up to the sky and laughed, overflowing with arrogance. Red flames burned in his palms, and as he circulated his cultivation technique, a huge amount of Saint power burned fiercely. He pushed his hands forward and slammed them toward the sky. Host activated instant light, split shadows, consuming high-level talent points. Boom! Lin Chen pushed his palm forward. The endless raging crimson flames transformed into a giant palm that shook the sky. It swept towards the sky like a violent storm, exploding in an instant. I'll add 50 points and give you 250. Lin Chen's laughter made the scalps of countless super, monstrous geniuses tingle. It also made all the elders, deacons, and disciples of the Divine Flame Palace dumbfounded. Lin Chen was also using the 9-layered burning sky palm, and he had cultivated it to the same level as Wu Pianju, with no flaws and flawless. And no more, no less, exactly 250 moves. 50 more than Wu Pianju's. Was he really suggesting that the martial god's son couldn't do it? Bang, bang, bang. It was as if the entire world had exploded. 2 sky-covering heat waves crushed together, twisting space and quickly recovering. The sound waves were like endless roars of thunder. Even though space was separated, many saints below the heaven-opening realm were still deafened, their eardrums about to burst. This power was too terrifying. If it weren't for the Sage King holding down the fort, everything within a radius of several million miles would have been razed to the ground if it landed in the Divine Flame Palace. Wu Pianju's total acupoint expansion was 10,550 times, and her total acupoint condensation was 2,120 times. Every condensation was a reference to the number of acupoint expansion. In addition, the 10 life and death saint acupoints increased by 5 times. The star receiving realm doubled, and the saint heart doubled. Just the power of the total saint energy alone was enough to reach an astronomical figure of 40,284 saint energy. Each of the 9-layer burning heavens palms contained more than 40,000 exalted one's power. This wave of attacks was enough to destroy 1,000 planes. It was as if it could split open the heavens. On the other hand, Lin Chen's total acupoint expansion was 157,565 times, and his total acupoint condensation was 53,500 times. The limit of his saint energy was 27,970 saint energy. In terms of saint energy alone, he was 3 levels lower than Wu Pian. The heat wave engulfed the entire sky. Lin Chen's saber light swirled around him. Like a dancing butterfly, the flying saber light cut through the remaining heat wave. He then activated the golden jade garment, and the heat wave could not touch him at all. The saber protected its master. It was Lin Chen's 8th grade Saint Saber, spiritual rhino. Everyone could see that although Lin Chen was strong, in this battle, Wu Pian was slightly better. However, Lin Chen's battle prowess was still shocking. Chi! Rip! Wu Pian pointed at the white light and tore through the heat wave. She said calmly, "Interesting." She turned into a flash of light and shuttled through the void like fire. Lin Chen turned his hand and pointed at the wind demon perishing sacred finger. The white light in the void was crushed. He spread his 9 wings of the heavenly demon, and in an instant, he traveled 1,000 miles. Boom! Even though Lin Chen was moving at high speed, the space behind him suddenly split open. Her fist was like a saber, and Wu Pian's fist hit the top of his head. Lin Chen turned around like a swimming dragon. His saint energy burst forth, and he raised his hand to hit her with his elbow. Bang! There was an explosion of air. Wu Pian followed up with another attack. The spiritual rhino flying dagger turned into a flash of white light and pierced toward him, forcing him to dodge to the side. Lin Chen took advantage of the momentum to retreat and soar into the air. Using the gap created by the spiritual rhino flying dagger, he kicked toward Wu Pian's head. Wu Pian's palm shook. Like a black hole, she absorbed all of Lin Chen's saint energy and sent Lin Chen flying. She clawed toward Lin Chen's saint heart. Lin Chen's shoulders shook, and he clenched his fists. The wind from his fists was like a whirlpool, and he violently punched out. A circle and a claw, a mushroom cloud shot up to the sky. Rip! The telepathic rhino flying dagger slashed at Lin Chen again, and the dagger flashed like snowflakes. Wu Pianju immediately used the fire glass 1,000 illusory steps, and a holy light that looked like a fire cloud appeared under her feet. She appeared behind Lin Chen like a phantom. When she dodged the flying dagger, she punched toward Lin Chen. Unexpectedly, Lin Chen didn't dodge. Instead, he moved forward. Before Wu Pian's punch could land, his demon wings, which were formed by saint energy, spread open. He stomped on the ground and pushed with his back toward Wu Pian. In a flash, Lin Chen's hands locked onto Wu Pian's wrists like an eagle's claws. He exerted force on his shoulders and threw Wu Pian down. Strong winds blew, and space shattered. Lin Chen actually threw Wu Pian off his back. Who would have thought that Wu Pianju's 5 fingers would suddenly grab at the void and actually fixed his body in midair? His body spun, and both of his hands held onto Lin Chen's arms, and he threw Lin Chen out as well. Reverse back throw. Lin Chen spun in midair. When he dissolved the force, he threw a punch across the air. Wu Pian sneered and met the punch head-on. Boom! Bang! Lin Chen took 10 steps back. Wu Pian took 3 steps back. The two of them stepped through the air, their eyes sharp. The strong wind was like a knife. Their robes billowed, but they didn't look messy at all. Chi! Immediately after, Wu Pian's punch was followed by 100 palm strikes. Her momentum was like a raging wave. Endless wind blades and palm strikes crushed the universe. This was a new intermediate orange grade technique. It was another 100 moves. Clang! Lin Chen's second flying dagger Thunder Rush, appeared. With 2 daggers in his hands, Lin Shin swung them and used his instant light split shadow talent, Lotus Dance. The sky was filled with Lotus Blade auras. The blade auras were dazzling. The terrifying wave of Lotus Blade auras instantly shattered Wu Pian's palm technique. The strengthened plus 15 rank 8 flying dagger sharpness was fully displayed. Chi! Wu Pian greeted him with another palm. This palm was like a 5-colored cloud, but it burned with a divine power that could burn and devour one's blood. Lin Shun wielded freezing sky and slashed down furiously with his sword. Holding the sword with both hands, he used billions of starlight to shatter the galaxy and cut off the bloodthirsty 5-colored cloud palm. The sky exploded, and the eyes of the 3 sword venerables of the sword domain shone brightly. Seeing the 2 of them flashing in the sky, the super monsters were dumbfounded. TSK, what kind of gods are these 2? I can't even sense where they are. It's too terrifying. 1,000 moves in an instant. This is the battle between a man on the monster ranking and a battle god's son. They are so strong that they're like freaking monsters. The super monsters' hearts trembled. Even the 1st and 2nd refinement sages felt a sense of déjà vu. With their cultivation and vision, they could only barely see the trajectory of the battle and the traces of their attacks. The battle between the 2 of them was not sloppy at all. The eyes of the antiques at the 3rd refinement stage and above shone brightly. Especially in the close-range combat just now. Not to mention that he had used all kinds of combat skills at the peak of perfection. Even the dodging, defense, counterattack, parrying, and breaking moves in close-range combat had long been predicted and prepared in the next instant. The battle between the 2 of them seemed as if it was a performance that had been arranged in advance. It was extremely smooth and unrestrained, and it could be said to be extremely unrestrained. Every single move of theirs was terrifyingly accurate. The 9 sages were more or less paying attention to the battle. The 9 sages and sage kings at the 7th refinement stage and above could see Wu Pianju was not serious yet. From start to finish, he had been using Divine Flame Palace's cultivation techniques and battle techniques. He had not even used a single move of Wu Clan's ultimate techniques and his self-created cultivation techniques. He had not even used a single sacred artifact. On the other hand, Lin Shun had already used 3 8th-grade sacred artifacts. Chapter 1571. It can't be wrong. It's close to 28,000 venerables. Lin Shin's cultivation has most likely reached the Saint Heart realm. But something's not right. Why doesn't his attack have the life and death chi of the life and death realm? Lin Shin's Saint Force is so much weaker than Wu Piju's. How did he block Wu Piju's attack in a head-on clash? It's not enough to rely on defensive techniques alone. It's his saint weapon. Good lord, his battle robe is made by a true blacksmith. This is the strongest defensive sacred artifact I've ever seen among all the grade 8 defensive sacred artifacts I've ever seen. It's second only to a 9th grade defensive saint weapon. The eyes of the Sword Region's elders lit up. They were shocked and puzzled. What realm was Lin Shin at? Guardian Lon, who was maintaining the battle space, narrowed his eyes. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. In terms of battle power, he's comparable to a 2nd Revolution Saint or even stronger. His reaction speed is comparable to a 3rd Revolution Saint. Most of the Saints on the Saint talent ranking have already stepped into the Heaven opening realm. Only Wu Piju is still in the Saint Heart realm. With his battle power, he might be able to force Wu Piju to use her true strength. After this battle, Wu Piju might be able to use him to perfectly advance to the Heaven opening realm. Although Lin Shun is strong, in the end, he is just a stepping stone. In the sky above the Divine Flame Palace, Lin Shun and Wu Piju turned into countless afterimages and exchanged blows with flowing light. Their speed was so fast that even a 1st Revolution Saint could not see the battle clearly. The 10 Supreme Elders of the Elders Guild were even more shocked. The two of them had been predicting each other's moves the entire time. Lin Shun predicted Wu Piju. Wu Piju predicted Lin Shen's prediction. Lin Shun predicted again. Wu Piju predicted again. Wu Piju predicted again. Wu Piju predicted again. Wu Piju predicted again and again. And Wu Piju predicted both Lin Shen's moves. This caused the two of them to be unable to lock down each other's moves. Every move was perfect, but it was broken every time. It was like a dance that had been rehearsed countless times. It was as smooth as flowing water. The two of them had sublimated battle into an art. Lin Shun was more than twice as strong as when he was in the devil world. Just the instantaneous speed of his mental power was far beyond what it had been at that time. In addition, which of the servants who had been training with Lin Shun during this period of time wasn't a legendary figure? When they trained with Lin Shun, their combat experience was far superior to that of ordinary opponents. Bang! The two of them exchanged a punch, and when they retreated again, the aftershocks of their attacks were blocked by the flowing starlight of the Star Chaser heavenly morning robe. Host has received 20,000 intermediate strengthening points, 290,000 peak grade cultivation technique soul essences, 2 billion high grade talent points, 50 million peak grade fire energy points. Lin Shun laughed heartily, laughing in a carefree manner. Ha ha ha, awesome. It feels so good. All the monstrous geniuses and mighty figures were speechless. Mother Asterisker. This Lin Shun is really a freak. They all broke out in a cold sweat as they watched the battle. How could this be called satisfying? This guy could definitely be nominated for the Saint Talent ranking. To Lin Shun, Wu Pianju's stats were really high. As he fought, he kept dropping. This Wu Pianju was practically a walking treasure trove of stats. The more he fought, the more points he gained. You're done warming up, right? Come, I'll give you a solo score of 6. Lin Shun smiled and snapped his fingers. Snap! Host has activated Super Confusion 36 times against enemy targets. Confusion status lasts for 59 seconds. Buzz! Wu Pianju's mind was in a mess. Countless strange thoughts popped up randomly. Her limbs twitched, and the blood in her body flowed chaotically. It was as if her entire body was not listening to her commands. Oh, interesting. Wu Pianju had seen many big scenes. This little bit of confusion was nothing to him. The son of the battle god. Whoosh! Rip! Almost at the same time, a grayish-white talisman fell from the sky and suddenly exploded. Consumed 30 million peak grade rune energy points to activate Slow Talisman. The moment this Slow Talisman was activated, even Guardian Land's expression changed slightly. In the holy flame space that he personally oversaw, the flow of spirit chi in the surrounding space became especially slow and solidified. Almost all saints below the 3rd refinement stage could not move. Even circulating saint power was very difficult. It was almost as if they were at the mercy of others. With the combination of the Super Chaos rune and the Slowing rune, even the 9 great saint geniuses were slightly surprised. Boom! Lin Shun instantly flashed thousands of miles and slashed at close range with his sword. The cold starlight sword aura contained sharpness that far surpassed an 8th grade sacred sword. One sword divided into 150 billions of starlight and slashed at Wu Pianju. Countless starlight slashes seemed to envelop Wu Pianju. The corners of his mouth curled up, and he softly chanted an incantation. Belong to me, divine art, martial heart freedom, whoosh. Almost instantly, as if an electric current was flowing through Wu Pianju's body, all the super confusion status was cleared. Her limbs did not tremble, and she regained her masculinity. It's the martial heart incantation that removes all negative statuses. The Divine Flame Palace Elder Guild and the others had solemn expressions. In a flash, Wu Pianju's hands were covered with a layer of glittering golden gloves. Golden threads wrapped around her, and there was divine power hidden within. 8th grade sacred artifact, divine martial transformation boxing gloves. Nayu. Wu Pianju slightly raised her right hand, and the golden threads covered her right palm rotated slightly. A mysterious suction force was like a whirlpool, swallowing the stars and absorbing the moon. It actually sucked into nearby space that had become sluggish and returned to its original state. Shatter stars. With her palm covered in flowing light, Wu Pianju smashed the peerless sword aura that could shatter millions of continental plates. Nayu broke the sluggish runes in her left hand, and shatter stars crushed billions of starlight in her right hand. Wu Pianju raised her hand and clenched it, and all the sword aura fragments gathered together. Sun grip. With a clench of her palm, they all shattered. Bang! All of Lin Chen's attacks were broken. Oh, is it finally for real? I've smashed many fake descendants of gods in the past. Today, I want to see how it feels to fight a real descendant of gods. Not only was Lin Chen not surprised, but he was also very excited. Wu Pianju sneered. Lin Chen, you are qualified to be my opponent. As soon as she finished speaking, Wu Pianju took a step forward. Dazzling lights appeared under her feet, and her body flashed to the side. The expressions of all the sages below rank 4 changed greatly. Even they could not react to the speed just now. At this moment, the 9 people on the Saint Talent list revealed expressions of interest. Wu Pianju was finally serious. Too fast. This is the martial god's ultimate technique, orange high-tier movement technique, martial god step. This is the #1 movement technique in orange high-tier, created by the martial god. It is unparalleled in the world. Even advanced orange rank movement technique might not be able to beat martial god steps. The elders were overjoyed. Once the martial godson got serious, Lin Chen would definitely lose. If the difficulty of cultivating an orange middle-tier cultivation technique was 100, then the difficulty of cultivating an orange high-tier cultivation technique was 10,000. Once an orange high-tier cultivation technique was used in battle, the momentum would be completely different. Not to mention, martial god step, which had the title of #1 movement technique, when used by the martial god's son, the speed would be as fast as crossing through the void. Bang! Rumble! Almost at the same time as Wu Pianju disappeared, Lin Chen's figure was hit. Everyone did not even see when Wu Pianju went over. The 10 great elders smiled knowingly. This scene was only to be expected. However, with a shattering sound, Lin Chen's figure actually exploded into countless fragments of light that looked like clouds and blood. That martial, venerable Shui Yifan immediately opened his eyes. A trace of shock appeared on his calm expression for the first time. He also used an orange high-tier movement technique. Chapter 1572. No wonder he's on the Saint Talent ranking. He has the ability to break through space restraints. The slow rune and super chaos are useless against him. They can only disrupt his rhythm slightly. Since that's the case, I'll use my attacks to suppress him. Lin Chen continued his pursuit and fought with Wu Pianju. The two of them turned into streaks of light that filled the sky. The moment Lin Chen's figure exploded into bloody clouds, all the old antiques in the Divine Flame Palace, and even the people from the Lawkeeper Hall, had interesting expressions. At this moment, Yun Tianguang, who was standing outside the Divine Flame Palace, couldn't help but smile. "My lord, have you reached a higher level?" Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless wind-breaking noises were heard, and the sky was filled with bloody shadows that looked like storm. Every cloud and bloody light was actually Lin Chen's shadow. Lin Chen raised his sword and slashed apart the roulette-like sword light. Tens of thousands of sword light wheels slashed diagonally. Wu Pianju's 5 fingers crushed the sword light and punched towards Lin Chen's chest. Mountains and rivers were heavy. The sky fell and the earth cracked. Bang! 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 The terrifying aftershock of the explosion spread wildly and wreaked havoc in the sky above the Divine Flame Palace. When the streaks of light and bloody shadows collided with each other at high speed, the Elder's Guild's jaws almost dropped to the ground. He caught up. Lin Shin actually caught up with Wu Shenxi's martial god step. What kind of movement technique is this? It's actually comparable to the number 1 orange grade advanced movement technique, martial god step. The cloud shadows are like light, and the afterimages are like blood. The sky light follows the shadow, and the shadow turns into a bloody body. This is the long-lost peerless movement technique, cloud shadow, heavenly light. A powerful figure recognized Lin Chin's movement technique, and his mouth trembled. Hiss! It's actually the legendary blood monarch Yun Tianguang's famous technique. What kind of luck did Lin Chen have to obtain the blood monarch's inheritance? He even cultivated it to the point of perfection. This is too exciting. Cloud shadow, heavenly light against martial god step can actually fight to this extent? While the Elders Guild and rank 9 representatives were shocked speechless, Wu Pianju's technique changed again. Buzz! The aura of death surged like a river, destroying the 9 heavens above and diving into the 9 underworld below. Wu Pianju held a sword that was as green as jade and as clear as a mirror in his hand. 8th grade sword, 9 nether sword. With a sword in hand, Wu Pianju looked like a sword saint of death from hell. His entire body was surging with the aura of death. He held his sword and slashed horizontally. A pitch-black lotus of death bloomed in the sky. Death Lotus Burial. Wu Pianju's figure flashed like a dragon. Every time she drew her sword, she would appear in a different position. The black sword lotus from the tip of her sword would split into 2, 2 into 10, and 10 into 100. In the blink of an eye, sword chi covered the entire sky, and sword lotuses bloomed in the sky. The black lotus seemed to be moving extremely slowly, but in reality, the sharp light that it emitted had already enveloped half of the holy flame space in a thousandth of a breath. Another advanced orange combat skill. Moreover, he had used it more than 10 times in an extremely short period of time. The eyes of many experts trembled with fear. Even the expressions of the 9 holy sons were very interesting. The son of the martial god actually knows swordsmanship. In the past, no one had been able to make the martial god's son use his true trump card. Even the holy talents on the holy talent ranking knew very little about it. When they sparred, they would not really use their trump cards. Almost no one knew that he was actually proficient in swordsmanship. How can Lin Chen block this sword? It's too fast. Wu Pianju combined with the martial god step and attacked Lin Chen from all directions at the same time. He can only take this sword head-on. Perhaps the outcome of this battle will be revealed soon. While all the old antiques were watching with rapt attention, there was a cracking sound in the sky. When Lin Chen swung his sword, the sky was suddenly split in half. Come on, son of the martial god. Fight me head-on. Don't retreat, ha ha ha. Lin Chen's maniacal laughter made people's hearts tremble. He held the sky, freezing sword in his hand, and slashed thousands of times. The tip of the sword shot out dazzling snow-white sword radiance. It was so fast that it could split the sky. The snow-white sword radiance was like a crescent moon falling to the earth. Every sword was split into 5, and each sword shattered the pitch-black sword lotus. The sky exploded into black and white, and endless sword radiance shot in all directions. Hey, it's one thing to have a movement technique, but you also have a swordsmanship? What? The black and white auroras exploded, illuminating the dumbfounded, shocked, and bewildered faces of countless people. Lin Chen actually knows an advanced orange-level swordsmanship? What the F***CK is going on? Advanced orange-level techniques have become cabbages in the market. Even the Divine Flame Palace only had 6 types of advanced orange-level techniques on the surface. Each of them was at the legendary level and had been passed down through countless generations of experts. The 3 sword venerables of the sword region and the dozen or so 8th grade representatives were even more excited. Not only did Lin Shen cultivate this advanced orange-level swordsmanship, but he had also cultivated it to perfection. Mastering two advanced orange-level techniques at the same time and cultivating them to perfection? What kind of humanoid monster was this? Only the three sword venerables seemed to have realized something. They looked at each other and communicated telepathically. There was unprecedented shock in their eyes. Hey, that guy's swordsmanship, don't tell me. It can't be wrong. Its ultimate secret opens the sky. It's the famous technique that Fong Ling used to defeat all the geniuses of the sword region. But that's not right. Isn't Fong Ling dead? Guardian Lan used his saint power to protect the holy flame space, and his expression became more and more serious. Indeed, there was a huge gap between Lin Shen and Wu Pianju's cultivation. There was indeed a huge gap between them. But every time, Lin Shen's swordsmanship was faster than Wu Pianju's. He used his momentum to make the first move and close the gap between the two with numbers. This made the battle almost 50-50. The trump cards of both sides were equal again, and there was no decisive factor. This guy can fight with Wu Pianju to this extent and not be at a disadvantage. He's really a saint. Lin Shen slashed horizontally with his sky-freezing sword, and Wu Pianju slashed vertically with her 9-nether sword. She flicked the tip of Lin Shen's sword away and slashed at Lin Shen's shoulder. With a step, Lin Shen dodged the slash. Wu Pianju chased after him and slashed fiercely with her sword. Deadly sword lotuses bloomed continuously, and she wanted to cut off Lin Shen's head. Unexpectedly, Lin Shen held his sword and slashed vertically from the sky. The tip of his sword stirred the 9 heavens and tore the clouds apart, turning into a beam of white light. The white beam of light transformed into a gigantic sword of white light that resembled a descending aurora, cleaving through the clouds in the sky and slashing down. The huge sword's power penetrated the sky and split into 5. When it fell, it directly crushed the black sword lotuses that Wu Pianju had created. The moment before the sword lotuses shattered, Wu Pianju, who had been holding the upper hand, changed her expression slightly. This guy deliberately exposed his weakness to lure me closer. How insidious. What kind of fighting style is this? He quickly retreated with the martial god steps. With a loud boom, the huge sword slashed down. However, Lin Shen took the opportunity to use his body movement skill and turned into a bloody light. Thousands of afterimages chased after him relentlessly. Wu Pianju, who had just retreated, had not adjusted her posture to the best. Lin Shen's sword moved faster and faster. He slashed 3,000 times in an instant. It could be said that he was extremely fast and suppressed Wu Pianju. Everyone was shocked. However, the next moment, something even more exciting happened. Activated orange intermediate passive talent. Destructive explosion. Bang, bang, bang. Almost every time Lin Shen stabbed dozens of times or slashed hundreds of times, Wu Pianju's body would explode. The explosion of the holy power penetrated his first layer of defense and blasted his handsome face into dust. His hair stood on end, and he turned into an afro. Wu Pianju exploded. What's going on? There's such a skill? The elders looked at each other in shock. What kind of skill was this? Since the start of the battle, Wu Pianju's face showed shock for the first time. Lin Shen's sword didn't stop moving as he laughed mockingly. How is it? Do you like the afro that the Black Horse Club specially made for you? Chapter 1573. Bang, bang, bang. Wu Pianju's emerald dragon blood turned into a shield, but it was shattered by the saint power explosions. This is Wu Pianju's self-created advanced orange defensive technique, Taisher Spirit Dragon Technique. Using the refined Taisher Spirit Dragon blood to protect his body, he can withstand the attacks of a first transformation saint without suffering any damage. He can even block part of the attacks of a second transformation saint. Lin Shen broke his defense. No, Wu Shenxi is not really injured. The elders of Divine Flame Palace were shocked. Lin Chen's extreme Watchtower sky-splitting sword art was divided into 3 moves: technique, speed, strength, 3 forms, and 9 moves. Each move could be used to deal with different situations. Lin Chen had cultivated it to perfection and could switch between them freely. In terms of lethality, perhaps Wu Pianju's Death Lotus Burial was better. However, in terms of flexibility, Lin Chen's ultimate Watchtower sword technique was more outstanding. Hiding in the team, Feng Ling, who had disguised himself, smiled like a master when he saw Lin Chen forcing Wu Pianju into a corner with his ultimate Watchtower sword technique. My lord is really like a god descending from the heavens. No words can describe him. Back then, in order to comprehend this sword technique, I cultivated in the Passion Valley for almost 100 years before reaching the Greater Mastery stage. After defeating all the sword saints and venerables, I finally comprehended it to the Greater Mastery stage. I didn't expect my lord to comprehend it in just 5 days. At this moment, Lin Chen had lured Wu Pianju to reveal his weakness and attacked him quickly. He hit Wu Pianju many times and finally took out his second trump card, the Destructive Explosion Talent. The Destructive Explosion Talent had a 10% chance of causing 50% of the host attack to penetrate the enemy's defense and cause an explosion. This talent could only be triggered if the host hit the opponent. Although Lin Chen and Wu Pianju were evenly matched, Lin Chen rarely hit him. Even if Lin Chen did hit him, he could not break through his defense. My defense is gradually being destroyed by his mysterious moves. Not good. Wu Pianju sensed that something was wrong. After a long battle, he drew his sword and pierced through Lin Chen's sword light. At the same time, he activated the Einerjar step and consumed a large amount of his saint energy, instantly retreating 100,000 miles away. Wu Pianju's soft armor, which glowed with purple light, was revealed. It was also an 8th grade sacred artifact. This kind of wealth simply made one's scalp tingle. Even among the top 100 monstrous geniuses on the monster ranking, the number of people who possessed 8th grade sacred artifacts could be counted with 5 fingers. At this moment, Wu Pianju had an afro on her head and her clothes were torn. She looked very pathetic and comical. On the other hand, Lin Chen's momentum was like a rainbow, and he was in high spirits. In this confrontation, Lin Chen had obtained the advantage. However, Wu Pianju was not really injured. Mother of Asterisk Kerr, the foundation of the battle god's son, is truly abnormal. A few peerless geniuses couldn't help but curse. Wu Pianju's defense made one's scalp tingle. On the outside, he had the Taisher spiritual dragon blood energy to protect his body, and on the inside, he had an 8th grade defensive treasure armor. In addition, after Wu Pianju's cultivation method, the true martial heaven shaking manual, he had achieved the true martial body. The true martial body made his sacred body immune to all poisons, demonic qi, and evil qi. Water, fire, and lightning could not penetrate his sacred body at all. In other words, Wu Pianju had 3 layers of super strong defense. If one wanted to break through his defense, one would have to break through these 3 layers of defense. Previously, Lin Chen had at most broken his primordial dragon aura, an advanced orange grade cultivation method, and an 8th grade sacred artifact. These were the peerless holy treasures that countless monstrous geniuses dreamed of, and countless 8th grade sects regarded as their ultimate techniques and sacred artifacts. However, Wu Pianju had easily obtained them. The foundation of the Saint Talent ranking was so strong that it was frightening. If I can't break through his defense, my extermination tier will be useless. His 3 layers of defense are harder to break through each layer than the last. It's a bit hard. Lin Chen continued to refine a huge amount of gold Saint Origin coins to replenish his consumption. He stepped into the air and absorbed all the attribute light balls that Wu Pianju had dropped into his body. Host has received 450 billion top-grade essence points, 3 million cultivation method essence points, 8 million heaven's path points, 100,000 middle-grade enhancement points, 36 billion top-grade spiritual power. Lin Chen's accumulation was getting more and more powerful. In addition to the attribute points that he had obtained from avenging his servants, his accumulation was close to the limit and had reached a terrifying level. Wu Pianju slowly closed his eyes and laughed out of anger. Very good, a wild kid of unknown origins. To be able to force me to this extent, your name is enough to go down in history. He did not use his sword. Instead, he clenched his fist, and a 3-meter-long blood-red glow appeared out of thin air, outlining the shape of a crescent moon. Finally, it turned into a blood-red bow with a faint dragon aura around it. It was actually another 8th-grade sacred artifact, the hidden dragon sky, splitting bow. When Wu Pianju opened his eyes again, rumble. A brilliant and peerless divine aura erupted from Wu Pianju's body. He was like a reincarnated martial god, an undefeatable legend. Wu Pianju's sharp eyebrows burned into flames. His eyes shone with an orange light, blazing brilliantly, and an orange cross-shaped image appeared. The pupils of all the mighty figures constricted. At this moment, if any sage below the 5th transformation sage looked directly into Wu Pianju's eyes, their hair would instantly stand on end, and their hair would stand on end. It was as if he had seen through all of their secrets. Martial gods, blood calamity, Feng Xietian, licked his lips excitedly, his battle intent boiling. Good fellow, this is the first time I've seen this kid activate his martial god's eye. The interest of the 9 great saint geniuses grew stronger and stronger. Lin Chen had actually forced him to open his martial god's eye. What was a martial god? It was an existence that surpassed the sage realm and could reproduce martial arts to new heights and realms. It was an existence that could see through the strengths and weaknesses of martial arts to the extreme. This was an ultimate technique that only belonged to the martial god's son. Once the martial god's eye was activated, all the flaws and blind spots in a battle would be seen clearly. Even if the cultivation technique was flawless, the martial god's eye would still see through its weaknesses. Wu Pianju's divine eye turned and suddenly looked at Lin Chen. Lin Chen activated his mental cultivation technique. The martial god's eye suppression did not give him any pressure at all, causing martial Lin to be calm and collected. Wu Pianju raised his hand and pulled the bowstring. The dragon aura surrounding the bow instantly swam rapidly and condensed into an arrow. It turned into a flying dragon-like arrow and aimed at Lin Chen. Even the monsters and rank, 8 mighty figures of Divine Flame Palace could not help but take a few steps back subconsciously. If this arrow was released, heaven and earth would definitely collapse, and the plane would explode. However, rumble. A starry explosion shook the heavens. When Lin Chen put away the heaven-freezing sword, a beam of starlight appeared in his palm. It was as if the polar star above the 9 heavens had fallen to earth. When he held it in his hand, it turned into a star bow, 8th grade sacred bow, fury of the 9 heavens stars. Lin Chen held the bow with one hand and pulled the bowstring with the other. He suddenly aimed at Wu Pianju. Come on, Wu. Let's have a sniper duel. Lin Chen laughed wildly. Let's see who can last longer when we shoot later. Everyone in the Divine Flame Palace was scared silly. Even the VIPs attending the ceremony were taken aback. This was King Awesome. Could it be that this Lin Chen even knew an advanced orange-grade archery technique? Ha ha ha! A certain black-robed man among the servants burst out laughing. Chapter 1574. One of the main reasons Lin Chen was able to challenge Wu Pianju was because of his extreme god possession talent. The extreme god possession talent increased his mental cultivation technique and cultivation technique by 300%. On top of the Tai Sky technique tripling the number of virtual holy points, it also tripled the effect of his cultivation technique. However, it was not easy to challenge someone a higher level. The difference between Lin Chen and Wu Pianju's cultivation was huge. It It was like two Sage Realm cultivators with 20,000 venerable force points challenging one Sage Realm cultivator with 40,000 venerable force points. The former would be crushed by the latter. Therefore, whether it was the holy power cultivation or pure venerable force points, the higher the level, the more terrifying it was. On the surface, Lin Shun and Wu Pianju's holy power differed by 13,000 venerable force points. But in reality, they were 2 to 3 levels apart. It was not enough to rely on an advanced orange cultivation technique that tripled the effect. Without the 8th grade sacred artifact, Lin Shun and Wu Pianju's battle might not be even. This was under the premise that he had instant light splitting shadows. At this moment, Lin Shun held 9 Cloud Star's Fury in his hand. Wind and thunder shot out, and a storm-like red flame turned into an arrow. Lin Shun aimed the arrow at Wu Pianju. Yin Tianguang's movement technique. Qi Fian's archery technique. Fang Ling's sword technique. The current Lin Shun was simply invulnerable. The sharp aura on the tip of the arrow that could burn the 9 heavens and 10 lands and shatter the sun, moon, and stars made Wu Pianju's mouth twitch. It was not wrong. Only an advanced orange cultivation technique could have such an oppressive aura. Wu Pianju thought to herself, "Damn it, could it be that the advanced orange cultivation technique you learned is comparable to mine?" The arrow was knocked on the bowstring, and it had to be released. Wu Pianju pulled the bowstring to its limit. Die for this divine sun, heaven-breaking divine moon. Wu Pianju shouted coldly as the blood moon appeared above her head. The dragon aura around the bow turned into a dragon arrow that could shatter heaven and earth. When it shot out, it was so fast that it seemed to travel through the void and arrived in an instant. So fast, Lin Shun laughed mockingly. A man can only be called a man if he can shoot more. Let's see who can shoot better. While talking and laughing, Lin Shun loosened his fingers, and a holy fire arrow shot out from the bowstring of the wrath of the 9 heavens, carrying a fiery whirlwind of raging flame storm. Burning heaven arrow. Instant light split shadow. The holy fire arrow shot out and transformed into an arrow light that crossed the sky. The arrow light spun with a holy flame storm and swept through the entire sky. When it finally split into 5, they merged into 5 storms that collided with Wu Pianju's dragon aura rainbow. Boom! The arrow light exploded, and a heaven-smelling storm wreaked havoc. The scorching heat caused the air to sizzle and distort continuously. When a series of explosions occurred, the 2 men's hands were like afterimages as they drew their bows and shot at high speed. They simply couldn't stop. Bang, 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 bang. Between Lin Shun and Wu Pianju, one transformed into a cloud of light. The other stepped on the dazzling martial god step. They drew their bows and shot rapidly from different directions at lightning speed. Arrow after arrow exploded in the air. Countless storms were generated time and time again. The 2 of them didn't stop at all, and their passion shot out in all directions. What was even more frightening was that very few people could see it clearly. When the 2 of them were shooting at each other, they were able to accurately hit each other's arrows every single time. The 2 arrows exploded, and the space exploded. Everyone was stunned. This battle was getting more and more intense. The 2 of them didn't stop the entire time. They used a method of shooting head-on to attack each other until the end. Every arrow was shot out in a thrilling manner. Lin Shun used instant light split shadow to attack head-on every time. His movement techniques were dazzling, and his cloud shadows filled the sky. The arrow light crisscrossed, and the dazzling shadows drifted. It's too fast. I can't see it clearly at all. I can only see explosions. Endless explosions. Didn't they say that Lin Shun has a cloning technique comparable to the original body? Why didn't I see him use it? Cloning techniques more or less have their drawbacks. He probably doesn't dare to use it now or can't use it. Mother of *Cur, this is really exciting. What will the outcome of this battle be? I bet 50 cents that it will definitely be Wu Shensi. I'll show you Lin Shun. Everyone in Divine Flame Palace, the disciples, deacons, and protectors of the two different sects, tensed up and kept their attention on the holy flame space. Lin Shun and Wu Pianju shot at each other for 2 days and 2 nights. And they didn't stop. It's been almost 3 days. How long do they want to shoot at each other? Damn, this Lin Shun is really unconventional. Neither of them hit each other's arrows. Their arrows hit each other, and their moves are counteracting each other. What kind of dodging technique and reaction speed is this? Forget about Wu Shenzi. He's a descendant of a god. His spiritual aura is already terrifying. But how does this Lin Shun maintain such a high reaction speed for such a long time? Even the Elders Guild was dumbfounded. What kind of strategy was this? Whoosh! At this moment, the space split open and 2 teams appeared in the sky. They were the 9th Transformation Saints from Divine Flame Palace and Lin Shen's team. Lin Shun and Wu Pianju were still fighting, but they were almost done. What's the result? Divine Flame Palace wants to get back at them. From the looks of it, they probably didn't manage to take down Lin Shen's team. The 3-9 Transformation Saints looked at each other. At this moment, both teams had suffered losses. Although Lin Shen's team had some injuries, it wasn't a big problem. The replenishment and consumption of divine pills immediately caught up. But the Grand Elders from Divine Flame Palace weren't so lucky. They had indeed gained an extremely slight advantage in the battle as a whole. No matter what, they were the big shots who had fought against the Azura clan in the past. These Grand Elders were all ruthless people. If they were at their peak, they would even need the 18-peak Stage 9 Transformation Saint from Lin Shen's team to fight. On Lin Shen's side, apart from Shangwan Wudi, Fong Ling, Lang Fan Yun, and Qi Fian, who were half-step Saint Kings, Yu Wangsheng and Jiang Tai Su were peak Stage 8 Transformation Saints. The remaining 11 9 Transformation Saints were peak Stage 9 Transformation Saints, while the other 7 peak Stage 9 Transformation Saints came from the 18 Transformation Saints. In terms of battle strength, the 9 Transformation Saints were stronger, second only to the 4 great half-step Saint Kings. On Lin Shen's side, he still had plenty of trump cards and experts. But Divine Flame Palace was in an awkward position. Under the premise that the Lawkeeper Hall couldn't command them and lacked a Lawkeeper, they were facing a huge disadvantage. The Divine Flame Palace's Grand Elders, Saint Bodies. They were already riddled with holes. Some of them were left with permanent injuries due to the counterattack of other races' experts long ago. The injuries were so deep that they could never be healed. After this battle, they had paid an even greater price. Are you all right? The servants looked at each other. Fei Wushuang flicked her finger, and a pure water droplet appeared. It contained the energy to regenerate vitality and entered the head of the middle-aged saint. His injuries immediately healed by a lot. That person grinned and said, "Thank you, Lady Wushuang. No worries compared to the previous injuries. These injuries are at most a scratch." As expected of one of the top forces of Divine Flame Palace in the past, these old monsters are really powerful. However, the biggest problem now is them. The 20 of us still have the strength to fight for a short period of time, and can even continue to recover. But if they fight again, their strength will definitely not be as strong as before, and their lives might even be in danger. Everyone looked at each other and smiled knowingly. What they were least afraid of was a protracted battle. Chapter 1575. Wow, so powerful. Lin Shun is so good at archery. The little demon empress clapped her hands excitedly. She looked like she was enjoying the show. My lord's skills are not inferior to mine when I was young. Qi Fian clicked his tongue in wonder. In the 36 regions of the Sacred Boundary, other than those on the Saint Talent ranking, there were almost no one who could display his archery skills to such an extent. On the other side, in the Divine Flame Palace camp, a Grand Elder stepped onto the platform of the Elders' Assembly. His hair was white, but his eyes were so withered that they seemed hollow as he spoke in a hoarse voice. The opponent is not weak. If we fight another round, we won't be able to take it. We can't let the martial godson bear all the responsibility for this battle. The Elder Council and the others all said, "Rest assured, Grand Elders. I have already sent someone to the Wu family to send a message. The martial god family will definitely not sit by and watch if he wants to challenge our divine flame palace. This kid dared to destroy the heavenly hall, so he will definitely pay the price." The reform of the divine flame palace cannot be stopped. In order to become the pinnacle of the ninth-rank forces in the sacred boundary and restore the glory of our divine flame palace, the reform of the martial god sun must be completed. So what if we give up some female disciples to become cauldrons? The 10 supreme elders of the Elders' Council looked at each other, their expressions revealing a hint of hysteria. They had no way out. If the divine flame palace wanted to revive, they had to rely on Wu Pianju's foundation and the Saint Talent Rankings grand plan. It was a pity that they had never taken Bai Ruoyan seriously. Revival was not a path they could take. Chi. Boom, boom, boom. Wu Pianju and Lin Chun drew their bows and shot hundreds of arrows before retreating at the same time. Host received 390,000 top-grade art soul essences, 7.4 billion top-grade mental energy, 290,000 heavens path points, 110,000 mid-grade strengthening points. Lin Chen's eyes lit up. This battle was getting more and more enjoyable. The attribute points that Wu Pianju dropped were practically endless. The descendant of a god lived up to her name. Just by fighting with Wu Pianju, Lin Chun had gained more attribute points than killing a demon lord. This battle was worth it. This Tian Jin's assassination technique is extremely powerful even when used in a frontal assault. He's able to turn all of his motives into illusions. Lin Chun casually swallowed a few long king wo, and his eyes burned even brighter. On the opposite side, Wu Pianju frowned. He did not expect that even the eye of the martial god could not deal with this Lin Chun. My martial gods, I can see through all the weaknesses from the divine body to the cultivation to the flaws of the cultivation method. However, after this guy shot at me, his aura suddenly became mysterious and erratic. I can't even predict his motives. He surely possesses extremely superb assassination techniques, and only the best assassins are able to avoid the detection of my martial god's eye. I never imagined that his trump cards were actually abundant to such an extent. For some reason, he glanced at Lin Chen's team of servants. Lin Chen's super chaos innate skill, slow rune, and Wu Pianju all had skills that could counter the opponent. In a situation where he couldn't break through the opponent's defense, Lin Chen's destruction innate skill and destruction explosion innate skill couldn't be fully utilized. If Lin Chun did not learn the unique skills of his servants, Lin Chun would definitely have a hard time in this battle. However, now that he had all kinds of unique skills, Lin Chen's combat strength had improved by leaps and bounds. His cultivation level did not change, but his combat strength had increased by several levels. He had already forced Wu Pianju into a dead-end step by step. He might still have some trump cards, but they were definitely not comparable to Lin Chen's current trump cards. Flying Flower Chasing Moon, Nan Gongyu, who was on the Saint Talent list, shook her jade-like legs. She turned her beautiful eyes and rested her chin on her jade-like hand, looking at the two of them with great interest. It seems that we will be able to see Wu Pianju's martial god bloodline today. The gentle and elegant Dongfang Hong put down the scripture in his hand and nodded in agreement. It is rumored that the martial god bloodline can increase the power of cultivation techniques by many times, far surpassing the original power level. I really want to see what level it can reach. The handsome and refined Ji Chinchio smiled playfully. I don't think that Wu Pianju will lose to this wild kid. Even if his team is strong and his acupoints are heaven-defying, it does not mean that he can reach our level. A hint of coldness appeared on Ji Wuqing's handsome face, and he said indifferently, "Lin Chun is just so-so. The real threat to our plan is the people in his team." Just as everyone was looking forward to Wu Pianju's real killer move to kill Lin Chun. Crack, 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 buzz. When a few cracking sounds were heard, 80 hexagonal stars flashed around Wu Pianju's body. However, at this moment, the 81st hexagonal star was slowly appearing. It took shape and split open. Endless divine light appeared out of thin air, like a heavenly river hanging in the sky. Vast divine power descended upon the entire divine flame palace. Wu Pianju stepped on the divine light, looking dignified and in high spirits. His divine body's aura flowed from far away, as if he was reborn and immortal. Wu Pianju's divine body, which had been through a long battle, was filled with new divine power and spewed out with an even more terrifying aura. Lin Chun instantly felt the pressure increase, and his eyes lit up. Could it be that he is? The attribute light balls on Wu Pianju's body started to accumulate at a terrifying speed again. At this moment, all the elders in the Elders Guild were shocked. Everyone in the Xinyan Palace, including the guardians and the disciples, were excited and shocked at the same time. Even Lin Chen's servants were quite surprised. The 9 great sages looked at each other, and their expressions were especially interesting. Wu Pianju was finally going to take this step. Lin Chen, I have to say that you came all the way here to be my stepping stone. Very good, very good. I hope you won't despair because I'm too strong later. That would be very boring, ha ha ha. Wu Pianju spoke casually, and his tone was full of confidence, as if he had the whole situation under control. The battle between Lin Chun and him had become an opportunity for him to perfect himself and advance. He had always lacked an opponent who could really fight. The people around him either did not dare to go all out because of his status, or they could not fight because of their status. On the Saint Talent list, it was difficult to determine victory and defeat without a battle of life and death. Ordinary sparring was not very helpful for breaking through to the next realm. However, Lin Chen's arrival, while making him suffer again and again, allowed his realm an opportunity to reach the peak of the breakthrough. Now, it was time for him to step into the heaven-opening realm. In the main hall, Shangguan Zhu and Shun Ling Shuang stepped into the hall. Shangguan Zhu's beautiful face was full of seriousness. Oh no, this kid was evenly matched with Wu Pianju just now. If Wu Pianju steps into the heaven-opening realm, the gap between them will be widened quickly. At that time, Lin Chen will have no chance of winning. When an ordinary genius becomes a heaven-opening realm saint, opening a saint point will increase their saint power by hundreds or thousands of saint power. However, the stronger the potential, the more terrifying it is. Wu Pianju is a direct descendant of the martial god, so the saint power increased by 1 saint point is comparable to the saint power of tens of thousands of saint power. However, just as everyone was holding their breaths, Lin Chen's excited and anxious shout came from outside the Divine Flame Palace. Hurry! Hurry up and break through! I can't wait! Lin Chen urged anxiously. Can you King break through to the heaven-opening realm? I'm so anxious. The guests, the elders, Wu Pianju. Why are you so anxious? He's the one breaking through. It's fine if you're not anxious to win, but you want him to break through quickly? Is this kid crazy? Those who didn't know would think that Lin Chun was the one breaking through. What kind of weirdo is this? Shangguan Zhu. I didn't expect this. Chapter 1576. What's the Lord doing? I don't understand. Which level is the Lord on? I didn't see the Lord cheering for Wu Pianju. The Lord is so flirtatious. Cheering for the opponent? Yes, it's like the mortal world back then. The servants' expressions were very interesting. This was probably their Lord. They would never be able to figure out what he would do next. Just as everyone was bewildered, boom, bam, a deafening sound shook the heavens. The brand new Saint Power seemed to be rebuilding mountains and rivers, cleansing Lin Chen's saint body. Starlight shone from Lin Chen's body, and 44 hexagonal starlight started to shine. The 45th hexagonal starlight was shining at his dantian. Lin Chen revealed a look of surprise as he smiled in a carefree manner. Ha, what a perfect timing. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the situation changed. The spirit chi within 1,000,000 miles of the Divine Flame Palace formed a vortex and gathered crazily in this direction. Wu Pianju and Lin Chun formed two completely different domains. The orange divine light surged like waves and turned into 9,999 streaks of auspicious aura that covered the sky and intertwined like a net. Countless golden boys and girls appeared on the auspicious clouds, playing pure hymns. The illusory figures of martial sages knelt on one knee and surrounded Wu Pianju like stars supporting the moon. On the other side, Lin Chen's Saint Power shone like stardust. It was dazzling and turned into 9-colored stars. Finally, it started to turn into a 9-color vortex of Saint Light. With Lin Chun as the center, it circled the sky above the Divine Flame Palace. Gasp! Many experts sucked in a breath of cold air. To think that Lin Chun had also ushered in an opportunity to break through. Wu Pianju and Lin Chun were both advancing in the battle at the same time. Wu Pianju's lips twitched as she stared at the number of hexagonal starlight shining around Lin Chen's body. The eyes of the Divine Flame Elder Guild's 10 supreme elders almost fell to the ground. Their faces were filled with disbelief as they stared fixedly at Lin Chen's Saint Cave. Even the supreme elders of the Divine Flame Palace, who had once fought with the top experts of the various clans and were extremely experienced, almost collapsed and twisted their waists when they witnessed this scene. The VIPs were so scared that their mouths were crooked. That's right, this wasn't shock at all. This was pure shock. Crazy. This world must have gone crazy. Are you kidding me? Look at the number of saint points he has. He doesn't even have 51. He hasn't even reached the life and death realm. Transformation realm. He's only at the transformation realm? What kind of joke is this? F***, am I dreaming? Lin Chun, who is at the 5th heaven true saint realm, and the 8th heaven true saint realm martial god son, who is at the martial god realm. How many days and nights have they fought to a draw? He's fighting above his level, and he's even F** king above the saint talent rankings. What's more, it's 3 levels higher. Hey, that's too much. Isn't he at the Sacred Heart realm? How did he shrink back to the transformation realm? That's impossible. The entire Divine Flame Palace was in an uproar. Lin Chun had learned Tian Jin's assassination technique, and hiding his cultivation base was just a basic move for a top assassin. So much so that no one could detect Lin Chen's cultivation level, even though they were fighting so intensely earlier. Now that it was revealed whether it was a reclusive old monster or a rising almighty, or the experts from the other grade, 9 forces in the Sage Monarch domain who were secretly watching the battle, as well as the entire Divine Flame Palace. All the experts' worldviews crumbled, and they were greatly shocked. Since ancient times, there had never been such a heaven-defying battle. Even the Transformation Realm Cultivator on the Saint Talent rankings couldn't compare to 1% of Lin Chen's strength. Everyone subconsciously thought that Lin Chun had stepped into the Sacred Heart realm a long time ago. A Transformation Realm Cultivator could fight with someone on the Saint Talent rankings for so many days? Wasn't this nonsense? How many times did he have to expand and condense his acupoints to reach this level? Moreover, it wasn't enough to just expand and condense his acupoints. It was like a baby who hadn't even been weaned, who didn't even know how to walk, suddenly fought with an elephant, and even fought to a standstill. How the F***, could anyone accept this? The magnitude of this jump was simply unacceptable. Hey, their expressions are very interesting. Look at how happy that person is laughing. Wow, he's foaming at the mouth. Look at how scared the old man is. Ha 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 ha. I can't take it anymore. I'm laughing so hard that my head is about to fall off. What are you laughing at? Thinking back to when we first found out about Lord's Transformation Realm strength, our expressions weren't much better than theirs. Quick, 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 draw their faces, ha ha ha. I want to write Lord's experience into a book. It'll definitely be the best-selling novel in the Sacred Boundary. The ugly people are still reading it for free, The handsome people have already bought it. I'll pre-order 10,000 copies. Thank you." The servants laughed happily, and the little demon empress clapped her hands in praise. Madame Elishua was dumbstruck. She, who had always been noble and elegant, seemed to have lost all her shrewdness and experience in front of this young man. A transformation realm cultivator challenging the Saint Talent rankings inside the Sacred Flame space. You're actually only a transformation realm cultivator. Even someone as proud as Wu Pianju couldn't help but be shocked for the first time. Lin Shun smiled wickedly and said, "Yes, didn't I say before that my only weakness is that I have too many strengths? I'm a member of the Black Horse Club. Being able to fight is just a basic skill. Being handsome is just a standard. And being low-key is just our smallest strength and specialty. Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" Wu Pianju's mouth twitched, and her face turned green with anger, as if she had been greatly humiliated. She didn't know if she was surprised, but she was definitely shocked. "I'll kill you, you bastard. Come on. Ha! Don't let the battle stop." Boom! Bang! The two of them drew their bows and shot at each other again. Their arrows collided, and the explosion shook heaven and earth. Elemental light balls scattered all over the sky. This scene gave many powerhouses a great fright once again. Damn, are these two guys still human? They can still maintain such a terrifying attack while breaking through. Forget about Wu Pianju. After all, she had been at the perfected Sacred Heart stage for many years. If not for her pursuit of perfection, she could have broken through at any time and was already very familiar with the heaven-opening stage. However, Lin Shun was at the acupoint condensation stage. Fighting during the acupoint condensation stage was like flipping the ceiling in the bridal chamber. He was either crazy or stupid. If he wasn't careful and couldn't reach a higher acupoint condensation stage, he would regret it for life. All the experts were focused on the battle, except for the Monster Genius list. All the super monsters on the Monster Genius list, regardless of gender, looked up at the sky and stared at the expanding 9-colored holy light vortex that covered the entire Divine Flame Palace. The super monsters' expressions became more and more horrified and dumbfounded. Everyone on the Monster Genius list looked as if they had seen a ghost. Fang Longji on the Monster Genius list couldn't help but take a few steps back, his mouth trembling slightly. What's going on? What the F***CK is going on? It's actually him. It can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. Others didn't recognize it immediately, but the super monsters who were always active in the extraterrestrial battlefield were no stranger to this acupoint condensation phenomenon. This scene was exactly the same as the one that had occurred in the shocking battle in the demon world 2 years ago. Chapter 1577. Only then did the 9 saints realize that something was wrong. Dongfang Hong narrowed his eyes. "Do you still remember the legend from 2 years ago?" The Emperor of the Great Sun, Yun Patian, raised his brows and said coldly, "Dongfang Hong, do you mean the incident in the Firmament Star Zone? The meridian condensing event that was called one of the top 10 miracles in human history?" "That's right. Back then, even a great fortune teller couldn't see through it. He said that a human who surpassed us on the Saint Talent list was born in the desolate demon territory." As soon as he said this, the 9 great sages exchanged glances. That was right. This earth-shattering breakthrough vision was exactly the same as the shocking secret that happened in the desolate demon territory 2 years ago. Even though they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, this legend had shocked the entire upper echelon of the sacred boundary. Everyone in the rank, 7 sects, knew about it. Meanwhile, the super monsters on the monster talent list looked at each other in shock. Yeah, why didn't we think of it? Our first impressions are the strongest. We all thought that Lin Chen wouldn't set foot in the Firmament Star Zone until he reached the nascent star realm. In fact, we should have known from the day he challenged the monster talent list. It was Lin Shun who snuck into the desolate demon territory 2 years ago. It was also Lin Shun who condensed his meridian in the desolate demon territory. In other words, it was still Lin Chun who challenged the demonic brilliant crown prince and fought the demon masters. He dared to condense his meridian in the demonic territory. In terms of craziness, our monster talent list, no, maybe the entire Saint talent list is not even 1/10,000th of Lin Chun's craziness. Other than Lin Chun, who the F***CK would do such a crazy thing? It's crazy. He's living like a main character in a novel. All the super geniuses on the demon genius list were dumbfounded. The truth was revealed. The mysterious person who condensed his meridian in the demonic territory and challenged the demon masters was Lin Chun. One had to know that this legend had once overshadowed the prestige of the Saint talent ranking. It was so absurd that people thought it was a conspiracy of the demon race. If the various geniuses hadn't seen it with their own eyes, and if the 100 heaven opening experts of the human race had not seen it with their own eyes, no one would believe it. Fei Qingwei covered her red lips with her white hand. Lin Chun is the mysterious person who broke through to the meridian condensation realm in the desolate demon and devil worlds. Ordinary people wouldn't even dare to think about condensing their acupoints in the devil realm. But he still did it, and even succeeded. How crazy is he? Bang, bang, bang. Arrows shot out in all directions, colliding with each other and exploding. A storm swept through the sacred flame space. However, the phenomenon of the two of them breaking through became even more intense. First, it was Wu Pianju. His 81st saint point was like a river flowing into the sea, constantly increasing, rising, and entering. The radiant saint energy surpassed any of the previous saint points. His saint energy broke through 1,000 Zun energy, 2,000 Zun energy, 3,000 Zun energy, 5,000 Zun energy, unstoppable. In the heaven-opening realm, the amount of saint energy gained from opening a saint point was more than 400 Zun energy, but there was no upper limit. Moreover, there was a misunderstanding here. For example, if a heaven-opening realm cultivator opened 90 saint points, did that mean he could control 4,000 Zun energy in the heaven-opening realm? No, that was not the case. 400 Zun energy in one saint point was the lowest limit. Generally speaking, if one reached the lowest limit in the heaven-opening realm, one's life potential had basically reached its limit. If one did not have a heaven-defying opportunity to change one's fate, it was basically impossible to reach the 82nd saint point in the heaven-opening realm. Therefore, there was no such thing as someone who could only obtain 4,000 Zun energy after opening 10 heaven-opening realm saint points. Saints who could reach the late stage of the heaven-opening realm, or even the heaven-opening realm, would definitely obtain more than 400 Zun energy from opening one saint point. As for First Revolution saints, every saint point in their brain would increase their total saint energy by 10%. In this realm, increasing one's spiritual light to fight was more important than saint energy. At this moment, Wu Pianju's 81st saint point had already broken through 8,000 Zun energy. She was unstoppable. She had no intention of stopping. So big, so much. As expected of the martial god's son, one saint point is almost equivalent to the power of 10 heaven-opening realm saint points. The descendant of a god lives up to his name. He, who has perfectly advanced, will rush to a whole new level. Looking at Lin Chun is just for fun. In terms of strength, we still have to look at the martial god's son. The martial god's son is the best in the world. The deacons and some disciples of the divine flame palace cheered. As for the lawkeeper's hall, his expression became more and more unsightly. Following the speed of his breakthrough, Wu Pianju's arrow shot through the void, but the momentum was reduced, and the arrow became more powerful. Lin Chun was not inferior to him. Previously, when the servants took revenge, his clone followed and obtained a huge amount of top-grade essence accumulation. In addition, during the battle with Wu Pianju, the attribute light balls dropped by the martial god's son caused Lin Chun's attribute points to skyrocket. In the end, it reached the critical value that he could control, ushering in the opportunity of the fifth meridian condensing stage. It could be said that this meridian condensing stage not only included the attribute points dropped in this battle, but also many of the previous meridian condensing stage accumulations. It would definitely be more terrifying than the previous meridian condensing stage. At this moment, seeing Lin Chen's meridian condensing stage vision, the Infinity Elder, who had been casually peeling oranges, was stunned. Even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as him couldn't help but feel shocked. This is... He quickly made a few gestures with his fingers. This meridian condensing stage vision was exactly the same as the aura that appeared in the firmament star field 2 years ago. Ha! It's him. So it was this kid who condensed his meridian condensing stage in the demonic realm. Good guy, he hit it so well that even I was fooled. The Infinity Elder's laughter caused a huge commotion. Countless experts looked over in shock, as if they were struck by lightning. The person who condensed his meridian condensing stage in the demon and demonic realm 2 years ago was Lin Chen. That was right. They did not expect that other than the mysterious person's meridian condensing stage vision. Who else could have such incredible combat strength in the transformation realm? It's Lin Chen. Damn, this kid hit it so well. How many tricks does he have up his sleeve? I can't see through him. I can't see through this kid at all. The VIPs from the Holy Flame Palace trembled. This kid's way of doing things was too terrifying. Condensing stage in the demonic realm. Challenging the demon genius list. Challenging a 9th grade sect. Challenging a saint genius who was 3 levels above him. Could this be any more King ridiculous? Every single one of these events was a world-shaking feat that could overturn history. All of these happened to one person. It was as if he had poked a hole in the sky and wanted to carve a 666 in the sky with a knife. He was extremely arrogant and overbearing. If that's the case, Wu Pian will definitely want to take him down. It won't be that easy. If that's the case, the Holy Flame Palace still has hope. Prince Lin Chen is still standing strong. Everyone from the Hall of Guardians was ecstatic. Even Shangwan Ju, the Honorable Guardian, could not remain calm at this time. Her beautiful face was filled with ecstasy as she clapped her hands and cheered. Good kid. I was wondering why he had disappeared for the past 2 years. He must have gone to the demonic realm. He dared to condense his meridian condensing stage in the demonic realm. He's crazier than I was back then. Chapter 1578. Bang! At that moment, another arrow exploded. Lin Chen's arrow was shattered for the first time. Wu Pianju's Saint Power cultivation had temporarily surpassed his when she broke through. However, Lin Chen still had a backup plan. He swiped his palm, and 3 sharp beams shot out. Clang! 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 3 snowflake-like sword beams shot out. They were Lin Chen's 3 rank, 8 flying daggers. Rushing Thunder, Burning God, and Spirit Rhino. The 3 flying daggers split into 5, and the sword beams flashed wildly. When they shattered Wu Pianju's arrow beams, they enveloped him in 2 flashes. No matter how good the flying daggers are or how strong the cultivation technique is, trash cultivation can't unleash decent strength. Break! Wu Pianju took a step forward, and her body moved like a dragon. She put away her sky-piercing bow and swung her 100 transformation gloves to attack. Her Saint Power was earth-shattering, and her fist technique was like a dragon. It was as if a ferocious dragon was lurking. At close range, she attacked 1,000 times in an instant. She caught the flying daggers with her bare hands and broke the sword beams with her fists. The storm-like fist shadows tore through the void and struck down the sharp sword beams. Chi! Rip! Unexpectedly, the sword beams cut through Wu Pianju's first layer of defense. The Taisher dragon energy was broken, and they triggered the destructive explosion on her second layer of defense, the purple splendor sacred armor. A series of sword beams exploded, causing Wu Pianju's chi and blood to churn. She broke out in cold sweat. Her defense had almost been broken. To the martial god's son, scars and injuries represented humiliation. Ever since he was born, other than being sent flying by a slap from his father, no one had been able to hurt Wu Pianju. Bang! 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 The moment the sword beams exploded, the entire sky shook. What exploded was not only Lin Chen's flying daggers, but also the acupoint condensation avatar in the sky. This time, it was Lin Chen's turn to start acupoint condensation. A series of explosions erupted from the nine-colored Saint Power vortex. The Saint Power became more and more condensed, and in a few breaths, it exploded 1,000 times, 1,500 times, 2,000 times, one after another. In the entire history of the sacred boundary, no one had been able to achieve the same level of aura as a meridian condensing cultivator on the Genius Saint ranking. Lin Chun might be the first, or he might be the last. My God, how many times does he want to condense his acupoints? It's over 2,000 times. It hasn't stopped. It's still rising. I'm King convinced. The person who condensed his acupoints in the devil world was really Lin Chun. At this moment, the power of Lin Chen's breakthrough was not the slightest bit inferior to Wu Pianju's ascension to the heaven-opening realm. The nine-colored vortex of holy light that blotted out the stars and covered the moon rushed out of the holy flame space. Even Enforcer Lan was unable to restrain it. The nine sacred light vortex extended from the divine flame palace all the way to the outside. Millions of li, hundreds of millions of li, it enveloped the surroundings. It grew bigger and bigger, triggering a series of explosions. Everyone in the Sage Monarch domain was shaken. Every time there was an explosion, it meant that the owner of the phenomenon had condensed twice as many acupoints. It's almost 2,500. Did he really surpass the total number of acupoints condensed by Sheng Kai in a single round? What's the background? Who is this person? It's from the direction of the Divine Flame Palace. Someone is challenging the Divine Flame Palace. What's going on? The acupoints condensed 3,000 times, and it's still not stopping. Quick, activate the sec-protecting grand array. Damn it, this acupoint condensing is about to affect us. Young people nowadays are really getting fiercer and fiercer. I've only been in seclusion for 2 eras, and the sacred boundary has already changed. A single round of acupoint condensing 3,000 times is here. What kind of joke is this? In the Sage Monarch domain, those old monsters who had been in seclusion for a long time were alarmed and came out of seclusion. Those super first-rate grade, 8 forces with extremely strong foundations even had to activate the sec-protecting grand array to avoid the power of Lin Chen's acupoint condensing. One had to know that when Lin Chen had condensed his acupoints back then, the entire extraterritorial battlefield had sensed it, covering half of the galaxy at the border of the demon world, not to mention the sacred boundary. In the Divine Flame Palace, all the big shots activated their defenses to resist Lin Chen's acupoint condensing phenomenon and Wu Pianju's breakthrough phenomenon. Wu Pianju's breakthrough phenomenon was indeed terrifying, but Lin Chen's acupoint condensing aura was now several times stronger, suppressing Wu Pianju's power in all aspects. What was even more terrifying was that these two people were still fighting and had not stopped. It would be fine if they were breaking through to the life and death realm or star realm, but to condense acupoints while fighting was simply unheard of. Damn it, he's really crazy. Isn't this Lin Chen afraid that he'll blow up his sane acupoints while fighting? Only a ghost would do such a thing. He's extremely arrogant. All the mighty figures were in awe. Lin Chen's actions seemed ridiculous, but in fact, Lin Chen had already prepared a backup plan. He didn't need to worry about breaking through to the acupoint condensing stage. His 6 illusionary doppelgangers were already in the Providence plant bag. His doppelgangers and main body were one, and the 6 illusionary doppelgangers were wholeheartedly breaking through to the next level. This was because the situation this time was different from before. Lin Shun had accumulated too much power previously and broken through 4 acupoints consecutively. This time, Lin Shun was condensing acupoints in a single attempt, so he didn't need to personally fight. Wu Pianju's 81st Saint Acupoint had broken through and gained 12,000 Venerable One's power. It was still rising, and Lin Shun continued to condense acupoints, breaking through 4,000 times. His aura was unstoppable. Rumble. Bam. 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 Boom. Boom. 2 unprecedented waves of Saint Force crashed into each other, destroying everything in their path. From afar, it looked like 2 true dragon celestial phenomena had met and were fighting each other. The breakthrough phenomenon and the battle's aftermath were completely mixed together, and it was too much for the eye to take in. However, the expanding 9-colored holy light vortex and the series of acupoint condensing explosions were a constant reminder to everyone that they were witnessing the rise of an epic. It's still not stopping. A single attempt of condensing acupoints has already exceeded 4,500 times. What kind of monster is this? Who will win between the 2 of them? No, it's no longer a question of victory. After this battle, Lin Shun will definitely become a huge threat to the Saint Talent rankings. According to Wu Shenxi's plan, Lin Shun will definitely be the main enemy that the Saint Talents need to eliminate. The expressions of the rank. 8 mighty figures were especially solemn. After this battle, which side should they stand on? If they stood on the Holy Flame Palace's side, they would only provoke Lin Shun. However, if they didn't stand on the Holy Flame Palace's side, they would provoke the big shots on the Saint Talent rankings. If they remained neutral, they would miss the start of the new era of the Sacred Boundary and miss the opportunity for the rise of their sections. The result of this battle would also affect everyone's direction. The 9-colored holy light vortex finally stopped expanding. When the clouds dissipated, everyone's shocked faces and disbelief were reflected. Whoosh! Bam! Bam! After an entire day, Lin Shun and Wu Pianju's battle temporarily stopped. At this moment, the 2 of them were enshrouded in divine light and saint aura. Wu Pianju's 81st Saint Acupoint opened the sky with saint power, and it looked like the sun, moon, and stars were hanging in the sky. On the other hand, Lin Shen's saint power was restrained, and his saint power was as deep as the sea. It was fine if he didn't use it, but when he did, it caused landslides, tsunamis, and the realm to collapse. Shangguan Ju squinted his eyes. When he saw Wu Pianju's Saint Acupoint, he was amazed. He actually made a perfect advancement. Just the first Saint Acupoint of the heaven-opening realm increased his saint power by 20,000 Venerable Ones. The first Saint Acupoint of the heaven-opening realm increased his saint power by 20,000 Venerable Ones. Now, Wu Pianju's total saint power could unleash more than 60,000 Venerable Ones. It was far beyond the Saint Heart realm. Wu Pianju was indeed very powerful, but when all the powerful figures and saint talents focused their eyes on Lin Shun, they all stood up, their faces full of shock and solemnity. Blood Calamity, Fong Xietian, who was previously arrogant on the saint talent rankings, was so shocked that the corners of his mouth trembled as he muttered to himself. There's such a thing? Inside the Holy Flame realm, Lin Chen skillfully put on his self-made sunglasses and smiled coquettishly. It's time to show my real skills. Chapter 1579. When the 9-colored holy light vortex slowly dissipated, Lin Chen's aura was so strong that he could support the heavens and the earth. He was undefeatable. Ha ha! Within Lin Chen's group of servants, loud and lofty laughter erupted. Everyone, stand up. My lord is #1 under the heavens. You might not know what it means to challenge someone on the Saint Talent list as a transformation realm martial artist. We can only use 2 words to describe our lord. Freakish. I often say that I Long Jioshan could enter the Saint Talent list as a heaven-opening realm martial artist with a transformation realm martial artist. My lord can easily defeat the martial godson with a transformation realm martial artist. Ambush him. Don't be in a hurry to brag. He's dead for sure. Our lord broke through, and his mental cultivation method increased his strength. With a flip of his hand, he made a huge fortune. He also broke through, but don't be afraid. He can't beat our lord. If our lord can break through to the life and death realm, this battle will be a sure kill. Unfortunately, his foundation is too strong. He's a 6. Fong Ling. That's enough. It's real. The servants couldn't help but shout excitedly. No matter how experienced they couldn't calm down at this moment. This scene was too shocking to his heart. Now Lin Shun had opened 45 saint points and was at the mid-transformation realm. The 5th time he condensed his acupoints, it reached a shocking 6,500 times. Impossible, this kid's cultivation method has a huge secret. Even if he expanded his saint points by 31,000 times and condensed them by 17,200 times, he can't have this kind of strength. He has a huge secret on his body that allows his saint points to erupt with a completely different level of strength. It's too terrifying. What kind of cultivation method can have this kind of foundation? Even the Saint Talent list has never heard of this kind of cultivation method. In the long history of the sacred boundary, there has never been such a heaven-defying increase. The 9 Saint Talents expressions were extremely solemn. Previously, they were still disdainful of Lin Shun. Even if Lin Shun could fight with Wu Pianju, it was impossible for him to reach their level. After all, Wu Pianju hadn't stepped into the heaven-opening realm before. But it was different now. After witnessing this kid condensing his acupoints and erupting his battle prowess with their own eyes, if this Lin Shun were to reach the life and death realm or the star realm in the future, he would definitely become the #1 threat to their grand plan. Perhaps he would be able to approach or even be on par with the legendary 10 of the Saint Talent rankings in the future. I didn't expect you to have such a trump card. I have underestimated you. Wu Pianju's eyes were cold and merciless as her killing, intense soared. His perfect advancement did not bring him any joy. Instead, it made him feel an unprecedented killing intent towards Lin Shun. Lin Shun shrugged and laughed mockingly. What kind of monstrous geniuses are you? Arrogant by nature, always thinking that no one can surpass you. Seems like I've been too low-key. It's time to let you know who's the best at fighting. Lin Shun's 5th acupoint condensation corresponded to the foundation of the 5th acupoint expansion. The 5th time he expanded his acupoints, it was 2,000 times, and the 34 Saint acupoint had Saint energy that was equivalent to 1 trillion dragon energy. On top of that, he would have 6,500 trillion draconic power points. That would be 6,500 venerable powers. There was also a virtual Saint acupoint in Tai space. The Supreme God Possession had a 300% effect, which was 4 times more. That would be 32,500 venerable powers. It was truly a super multiplier, making a fortune silently. In addition to Lin Shun's previous 2,7970 venerable powers, Lin Shun's Saint Energy cultivation alone could unleash 60,470 venerable powers. That's right, the current Lin Shun, without any other means, was already at the same level as Wu Pianju in terms of Saint Energy. Wu Pianju's Saint Energy limit was 60,000 venerable powers, and Lin Shun's Saint Energy limit was also 60,000 venerable powers. Under the same level of battle prowess, Lin Shun, had really lost before. The only person who had never won was Lin Xingchen. Ever since the day they met, Lin Shun had never lost to Lin Xingchen, nor had he ever won. In the next moment, the expressions of the 9 great saints were especially interesting. The Emperor of the Great Sun, Yun Patian, said seriously with 2 wisps of saint fire in his eyes, "Is it finally coming? The bloodline of the martial god." Dongfang Hong rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, "Although I have seen the bloodline of a martial saint, the martial god is a completely different realm. Zhu Tianyin frowned. This is the first time I have felt such a strong sense of oppression from Wu Pianju. Ji Wuqing nodded in agreement. Without a doubt, this will be the moment when Wu Pianju unleashes his strongest power. The outcome will be decided. Ji Qianqiu's smile was handsome and refined. What kind of realm can a martial god's cultivation technique reach? We've always been looking forward to seeing it for ourselves. At this moment, orange flames burned around Wu Pianju's body. Red veins vaguely appeared under his skin. It was as if his entire body was burning, and he had completely turned into the sun in the center of heaven and earth. The space between his brows was vast and mighty. As he floated in the air, he glanced outside the space. Buzz! Bang! 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 Those who made eye contact with him were so frightened that they knelt on the ground. They couldn't even stand properly. Those who were Third Revolution saints and below felt as if their minds were about to explode. A supreme figure appeared in their minds. The suppression of the martial god. This was true divine might, to the extent that everyone had the illusion that the martial god had descended. Shunling Shuang, who was standing in the main hall, had a slight change in expression. Her face was slightly pale, and her petite body swayed as if she was about to fall. Shangguan Zhu supported her and asked worriedly, "Lass, what happened to you?" Shenling Shuang gritted her teeth. "He has activated the martial god bloodline. His bloodline is stronger than mine, and I am being suppressed by him." Shangguan Zhu was surprised. Martial god bloodline? Wu Pianju is finally going to fight with his life on the line. I wonder how Lin Chun is going to resist. The elders looked at each other. They didn't expect Wu Pianju to be forced to such a state. Even a perfect advancement couldn't suppress Lin Chun. Clang! With a dragon roar, Wu Pianju stopped using the 9-nether sword in his left hand. The deathly aura of the yellow springs surged, and his right hand held a cold and bone-chilling wrist dragon saber. The dragon's teeth were carved, and an evil dragon was embedded in the saber. It was evil and sharp. It was another 8th-grade sacred artifact, Evil Dragon. The saber aura turned into a dragon, sharp and evil. With a sword in his left hand and a saber in his right, Wu Pianju's aura rose sharply, and he was unstoppable. He took a step forward, and a torrential divine might swept across the entire sacred fire space. Seeing this scene, the monsters on the monster level talents list were completely dumbfounded. Was the martial god son really an all-rounder? Was he proficient in both sword Dao and saber Dao? However, the next scene was even more exciting. Clang! There was another crisp sound of saber being unsheathed. Lin Chun held the saber in his left hand, and the blade was dark red, as if it was bathed in blood. He held the sword in his left hand, and the blade was as clear as a mirror. The tip of the sword was like a bright jade, and the cold air froze the world. With the absolute flame saber in his left hand and the heaven-freezing sword in his right hand, Lin Chun held one saber and one sword. Wu Pianju's pupils constricted. Lin Chun smiled coldly. Wu Pianju is not the only one who knows how to use both saber and sword. Everyone's mouths twitched. F***CK. Why are you here too? What kind of monsters are these two? Is that so? I like to see how much you can keep up with me. Wu Pianju was so angry that he laughed. He slashed horizontally with his saber and sword. Lotus Burial, Hell Wheel. Chi. Rip. The pitch-black death sword lotus burst out. Right above the death sword lotus, a snowflake-like wheel of blade light was spinning at extreme speed, slashing towards Lin Chun. The Divine Flame Palace's guardian venerable, Lan Jingyu, narrowed his eyes. With a flick of his sleeve, he strengthened the sacred fire space by another layer. This move was more than 10 times more powerful than the previous one. On one hand, Wu Pianju's cultivation had broken through, and her overall combat power had increased by 3 levels. On the other hand, when activating the martial god's bloodline, the power of a cultivation technique would be beyond its original grade. Lin Chen's lips curled up wildly. After breaking through, there are indeed more elemental light balls. The power of a cultivation technique beyond its original grade is not exclusive to you alone. Boom! With a loud explosion, Lin Chen suddenly brandished his saber and sword. Chapter 1580. Extreme tower sky splitting. Divine strength breaking the sky. Waves rain clouds one-line sky. Wherever the tip of the sword pointed, the dazzling aurora giant sword split open the clouds and fell. The blade slashed rapidly, and the saber chi turned into clouds and turned into rolling dark waves, shooting out countless dark threads that covered the sky. Wherever the threads passed, the space was gently cut into countless pieces. As it swiftly slashed out, it split into 5, and at this moment, it displayed its divine might. At this moment, everyone in the servant team was overjoyed. Fong Ling's sword, Lang Fanyan's saber. The two merged perfectly. At this moment, they seemed to have seen the moment when the strongest sword domain and saber domain were surpassed. This time, it was the few VIPs from the saber domain who couldn't stay calm. They weren't unfamiliar with this saber technique. Hiss! This Lin Chen also knows advanced orange-grade saber and sword techniques. Monster! He's really a monster. Not only that, but his sword and saber techniques have also been cultivated to perfection. They're flawless and flawless. The power of his techniques has also far surpassed normal advanced orange-grade techniques. Good fellow, could it be that Lin Chen also has the bloodline of the martial god? Before Lang Fanyan and Fong Ling could get excited about Lin Chen's growth, Lang Fanyan, who was hidden in the team, suddenly turned serious as he stared at Wu Pianju. Hey. No way. The bloodline of the martial god is already so powerful. Swish. Bang. 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 The Aurora, Giant Sword, and Death Sword Lotus collided. When the dark threads cut through the circular saber wheel, the entire space exploded. However, the energy explosion didn't make much noise. The entire space was crushed into a vacuum, and only faint sounds could be heard. With Lin Chen's current cultivation base, it was not an exaggeration to say that using instant light split shadows was a miraculous skill. He used 10 advanced orange-grade techniques that could deal 3 times the damage. However, bang! With a loud explosion, Lin Chen's figure was pushed back dozens of steps from the chaotic energy storm, and each step he took shattered the space. Lin Chen was slightly surprised. The one who was forced to retreat was actually Marshal Lin? Something's not right. His cultivation base is comparable to 60,000 venerables, and he's using a strengthened grade 8 sacred artifact to execute an orange tier advanced secret art. On top of that, he's using the extreme god possession and instant light clone technique. How can his martial god bloodline suppress me with so many trump cards? Lin Chen felt that something was wrong. This guy still had a backup plan. The 9 great sages stood up abruptly, their eyes shining. Today was really an eye-opener for them. He was actually able to see Wu Pianju's ultimate move. Wu Pianju's trump card had just been revealed. Lin Chen, if I give you time, you might really grow to the point where you can threaten me. However, you will definitely die today. Wu Pianju laughed loudly. She used the martial god steps and flashed behind Lin Chen. Then, she drew her sword and swung her saber again. Rumble. This time, the pitch-black death sword lotus from the tip of the 9 serenities sword suddenly expanded rapidly. The disc-like saber wheel from the blade actually merged with the death sword lotus. When the death sword lotus bloomed again, its sharpness was like broken jade. Its power skyrocketed again. Be careful, my lord. This guy is already heaven-defying. He can execute a combination technique by himself. At this moment, a telepathic message was transmitted directly to Lin Chen through the heavenly cycle death seal. It was Fong Ling's voice. Rumble. The moment the saber wheel merged with the death sword lotus, all the mighty figures stood up in shock. The 3 sword venerables of the sword domain and the 5 sword sages of the knife domain all gasped. A combination technique? I've been in the sacred boundary for so many years, and I've only seen 2 combination techniques. Moreover, they were both low-grade orange tier. Using the power of a single person to perform a combination technique? What kind of monster is this? This is the talent of the martial god bloodline. It's too monstrous. Lin Shun is about to lose. After seeing the situation clearly, Lin Shun suddenly activated Cloud Shadow, Heavenly Light, and retreated rapidly. His body turned into a sky full of afterimages, and his sword danced in the air. Extreme K Sky Splitter's Celestial Speed Sky Splitter was executed crazily. His saber techniques were like the tide, and his attacks did not slow down even as he retreated. Bang! 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 Wu Pianju's attacks pushed Lin Shun back again and again. The 2 of them, one with a saber and one with a sword, fought from the sky to the ground. Everywhere they passed, there was a vacuum, and everything was crushed and annihilated. However, this time, it was Wu Pianju who suppressed Lin Shun. Lin Shun was in a passive state the whole time. His super chaos talent was restrained by his martial heart incantation, and his slowdown rune was destroyed by his special technique. He could not use half of his 3 orange tier talents. Logically speaking, Lin Shun had all kinds of orange tier talents and was at the same level as Wu Pianju. Even if he could not defeat her quickly, he should not be suppressed. This is a high-grade orange tier technique combination technique. Legend has it that if different types of techniques can be used together, their strengths and weaknesses can complement each other, and their power can be many times or even 10 times greater than the original. The higher the level of the technique, the harder it is to create a combination technique. It is too difficult to perfectly control a technique and create a new combination technique. But once it appears, it will be one of the miracles of the human technique civilization. Only those who have the same heart and are from the same sect can have a certain probability of using a combination technique. But this old man has never heard of anyone in this world who can use a combination technique. What shocked the old monsters and mighty figures was that the 10 supreme elders of the Council of Elders were looking at each other in astonishment. Their divine flame palace had once produced true disciples who used a combination technique. Their true cultivation was only at the middle stage of the Sacred Heart Realm, and they could only fight against someone with a perfect Sacred Heart Realm at most. However, once the 2 true disciples used a combination technique, their combat power directly surpassed the early stage of the Heaven Splitter Realm. The increase in strength brought about by a combination technique could be said to be instantaneous. Not to mention, it was a high-grade orange tier technique, and it was executed by the martial god's son who had activated the martial god's bloodline. Even if Lin Shun's combat power was on the same level as his, and he had the supreme god possession and instant light clone shadow to greatly increase the technique's power, he could not defeat Wu Pianju in a frontal attack. Using the sharpness of the sword to match the sharpness of the saber. What a whimsical and miraculous creation. The Saint Talent ranking is really full of monsters. Previously, Wu Pianju stayed at the perfect Sacred Heart Realm for 100 years. Although his cultivation did not break through, it seems that he has never stopped growing. It's flawless. This is a true combination of saber and sword, invincible in the world. In the future, given enough time, Wu Pianju will lead our technique civilization to a new height. Those old monsters who had lived in seclusion were all amazed. When they looked at Wu Pianju, their eyes were full of disbelief. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed such a scene that defied common sense. The 9 great saint talents were the same. It was an eye-opener. This was Wu Pianju's strongest trump card. Among all the people on the saint talent ranking, Wu Pianju was the only one who could use a cultivation method combination skill by himself. This was a peerless talent that belonged only to the martial god. No one could compare to his understanding and insight of techniques. Lin Shun was forced to retreat with every move. Although Wu Pianju's attribute light balls dropped a lot, He had no time to care about them at this time. Lin Chen's gaze became more and more intense, and he even clicked his tongue in wonder. The combination technique is really F***king fierce. This system is really disappointing. It doesn't even know how to make one for me. Heavenly Way Attribute Picking System. Version 7.0. I'm a yes man. Version 8.0. I'm a heavy punch. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.